notice when the curtain falls. Risk it all, hold nothing back. Seize the day, we must attack. Stars are rising, countless worlds colliding. Only one will take it all. Can we bring to fall the giants? Can we make the final call? We are the ones to ignite the darkened skies. The champions of the world that we defy. A solar ray of the few who rise up high. And we all fight at the last Can we bring to fall the giants? 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 We are the ones to ignite the darkened skies. The champions of the world that we defy. A solar ray of the few who rise up high. And we all fight at the call down the reckoning to bring back hope and peace, restore our Gloria to live forever. Bring down the dark regime and know how to unleash eternal power. Lead us to order. I am the Leprechaun. I am the Leprechaun.
Yo, what's up, party people? Welcome to the SLE. We're back again with another show match, and today we'll be having Black Manta playing against Runtime, two big bog standard teams in the SLE, and I'm really excited for today's game. So, what are you looking forward to, Mr. Dacer?
I'm very excited for today's games as well, but more than that, Sovanix, I'm very glad to be here with you, and I'm more excited than ever to review the game ahead of us today.
Yeah, I'm really excited. As I not jokingly mentioned, I was using some random ass weird voice, but these are two standard staple teams in the SLE, and we will be watching very familiar faces, and it's always nice to see people come back after a long break. You know, potentially they've been experimenting in solo queue, practicing, improving. So we have obviously the BLM squad, no changes except for bot lane where they've added Caliber, and then on the other side Runtime, our Italian staple squad in the SLE. They'll be having names like Kolarski. I don't know anyone else on the team, but I think others do. But yeah, I'm excited for this. Of course, last split, I don't think Runtime had the best showing in the world. So this, I don't know what to really expect from this show match. BLM as well had a rough split. So yeah, I don't know what you think of this matchup here. Oh, Cautious
BLM,
Cat. Sorry, Cautious
yeah.
Cat. Oh, love that guy. He's one of my favorites. I love that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, a couple of returning players as well, and I personally am excited for this just because we've already seen Black Manta play in the show match the other day, and we did see them, I would argue, put on a pretty good performance, ended up being 2-for-1 for them, I do believe, which does mean that they are currently in the lead when it does come to the show match performances, and with that being said, like you said, Runtime, a team that we haven't seen quite yet play. So I'm excited to see what they have to bring to the table today.
Oh yeah, I'm super hyped. I think when it comes to Runtime's play style, I think it's very unorthodox. It's very unexpected. And I remember one period where Kolaski was playing like a different role every week in the SLE, and he was performing on all of them. So you have players like that who can bring a bit of fire, bring a bit of unexpected duality with their play. On the other side, I personally think BLM is a squad where it's like when you play into them, you kind of know what to expect, and they are very drilled into their play style, into what they like to do. What they do doesn't differentiate too much from game to game. So I think in that sense, you have a bit of a clash of styles there. I think if I'm thinking of key individuals to look out for, it is, as I mentioned, Cautious Cat, Kalaski from Runtime, and then BLM, eyes on Linus, eyes on Denzer. I think last show match we saw Linus at his best and his worst at the same time, and I think that is the perfect showing for a player like Linus as we're about ready to head into draft. Yeah, I don't know what you expect from draft as it is a show match. I'm expecting people to just go crazy.
I'm expecting a little bit of craziness, and you mentioned Fire earlier, and Fire as a name, being the AD carry for Runtime, should be seeing him on the Rift today. Has been, at least according to his OPGG, playing a lot of Ashe lately, so I am expecting for that to either hit the ban table or be taken away by the opposing team. Ashe being very good champion at the moment as well, does play into that a lot, so when it comes to bans and such, I'm not expecting anything too crazy, like you said, Sovanix. It is a show match after all, so not like there's anything that high on the table. But still, maybe we get a little bit of spice. Who knows? Especially when it's, a team like Black Manta on the Rift, you can never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. And you can kind of treat this almost like a scrim, but just broadcasted. People will be playing as a practice. Important that you mentioned there's not really much to play for. This doesn't give you progression in the league. This won't give you any points or standings benefits in the league. This is literally just a practice game in the off season broadcasted to the SLE community. So yeah, there's like two ways I see this. You either get full experimentation or you get a very standard setup here, and already we're starting with the Maokai and Sion. Actually, I need to add. I think Sion is picked because BLM are playing with a player called K's Maze. Is that correct?
I do believe so. Yes.
Yeah, and so he's a Sion OTP. I don't know if he's eligible. I guess there's no rank limits for a show match, so it's fine. But yeah, K's Maze is a Sion one trick, and that has been left open for him. We'll be piloting that in the jungle in place of maybe today, and Seraphine as well. Seraphine, a bog standard champion for Black Manta. They love this on Quishji. I see BLM bot lane as like a weak side thing. They kind of just leave it alone and play heavily for top. So yeah, I think Runtime, they should be able to answer back with something a bit more aggressive in the lane. a bit more high DPS. They've seen the Scion, and so you kind of want to pick something that can shred through the tanks, as they pick two, I would say, tank killing carries to deal with that.
Yeah, and I mean, there is a lot of things in the meta as well at the moment that can deal with a lot of that. I feel like Kai'Sa is also one of them that is a very good option into that. We have seen things like the Ashe, we have seen things like the Jinx, the Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw is known as the tank shredder in the meta at the moment. It is still open, so you never know whether it's going to be taken away. Could be a Seraphine ADC as well for the side of BLM, which does give you that extra sort of shield and protectiveness if you pick things like the Kog'Maw, traditionally known as a very immobile AD carry, so it does give you that protection. But what do you expect out of the second banning phase of NX now that we've seen these first 3 picks?
Yeah, so Ryze being locked in on 3 kind of indicates that Seraphine will be headed to the bot lane. And I doubt it's going to be in the hands of Caliber. You can almost suspect that against Quishy, it's going to be piloted by him. So this is where you start targeting support and top laner bans, as Kled is the first one to be focused on. If you're BLM, yes, similar angle here, support and top that you want to take out. So Rakan and Camille is the angle to go for BLM. Runtime, I expect for them to just go for 2 top lane bans, as Linus is usually the person that BLM play around. But banning a support isn't bad here. Like, there's quite a lot of power picks open right now. As they go for another top lane ban. So I'm assuming that they're going to pick support here and leave counter pick for Linus, as they want to make sure Linus gets ahead. I think that's like the do or die playstyle for BLM. And yeah, if I'm Runtime here, you want to pick something with range against the Ryze. I think Ryze is a champion that kind of struggles with champs that can do things from afar. If you get up close to Ryze, then that's where he's strongest. Obviously, it's something like Jarvan, where you can start fights from a bit further back with Flag and Dragon ult. Something like, I'm assuming top lane is going to be blinded. It will be blinded here. And to round out the composition, I think Runtime should look for something a bit more that can pump out a bit more damage. And against a player like Linus, I think often where people falter against him is by playing a neutralizer playstyle against him. I think Linus struggles the most actually when you take the fight to him with a bruiser or something that can take down some of his iconic picks. So I would like to see Runtime pick something like that. As they did.
Yeah, there it is. When being a champion that can definitely step up to you in the lane if you step up too far. And last time around, we did see that. We did see Gucci Yang go with the Olaf into the Kled last time. We did see them sort of take the fight towards BLM, towards Linus. And Linus, with his aggressive playstyle, did end up beating out the Olaf in that matchup. But I definitely agree with you. Like you said, bring the fight to him. And GP is, I feel like, a decent pick into the Gwen. Should be able to sort of survive out the laning phase. And with that being said, like you said, it's going to be the Seraphine towards the bot lane as well. And now that these comps are rounded out, who do you think overall you'd say took this draft?
So I think Runtime's team comp is very, very simple to play. It's essentially all these champions are quite high up in the meta right now. Gwen kind of just wants to sit on side. Syndra Zaya can pump up big DPS on the Scion, the Nautilus. Jarvan, Maokai as your engage tools. So I think in that sense, it's always the case where in this level of play, if you have the easy team comp to execute, and if it's a team comp where it's we are not necessarily, bad, but it's the complexities of executing this team comp suits a team like Runtime, where it's you don't necessarily need to focus on hyper micro mechanics. Jarvan is very simple, Maokai is very straightforward. Syndra, you do need to hit skill shots, but with the setup, it's not essential to be a skill shot master. You don't really need to predict sidesteps. You can just wait for the Maokai Jarvan. But on the other side, I think it's an extremely well-rounded composition because you have team fighting tools, but you also have a 1-3-1 threat. And if I think in lane, Syndra will beat out the Ryze, but if you take them to a side lane in a much longer lane state, then that's where Ryze does have a lot more power because you can kind of shove wave with your EQ, and then you ult to mid, Syndra can't really match that. Or you ult to a different lane, you move around. I think a lot of Ryze players prefer taking move speed runes, so water walking, or I think Ravenous something
Ravenous
Hunter.
Hunter. Yeah,
No,
Ravenous Hunter.
I think it's Ingenious Hunter. The red rune that gives you move speed out of combat.
Yeah.
A lot of I think the Relentless Hunter, that's the one thing to say.
There we go.
Yeah. Bottom right. Bottom second right. There we go. That's how
Yeah.
usually that's how I remember it. But yeah, I think the heavy Ryze players really like to go for this setup so that they can shove wave, move around, make plays all around the map. So obviously we'll see how Denzer pilots the Ryze. I haven't actually seen him play the Ryze, so I'm excited for that. But yeah, I think BLM's comp, as I said, very well rounded. There's a lot you can do here. The only issue is that if this Gangplank doesn't pop off, they are lacking a lot of AD damage. GP as solo AD is incredible, but it does rely a good performance from him. So yeah.
I do also kind of feel like on the side of Black Manta, they do kind of lack that early game. You have great scaling when it comes to things like the Ryze, like you said, things like the GP. If you can get ahead on him, being solo AD threat isn't bad whatsoever. But when it comes to the early game, we have the Jarvan. On the other side, we have the Maokai. Zaya can make plays in the early game as well, a lot of CC there. Yes, you have the Ryze cage, but not a ton of follow-up when it comes to the mid lane. Obviously, Sion not known for his ganking ability. So definitely, I feel like it is a side where Black Manta might struggle to make plays in the early game. Like you said, Runtime have that Syndra in their back pocket as well. They have that scaling threat, where if the game goes long enough and suddenly you find yourself getting executed by Syndra, you might have a very bad time against some of these champions. If you are one of these squishier champions like the Seraphine, things even like the Sion, even if you have that a lot of HP, as soon as Syndra builds Leandries, you might see that HP dissipate very, very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you touched on a really good point here of the early game. Jarvan and Syndra as a mid jungle combination is so powerful because you create such good setup. Like Syndra is one of the best mages playing in chokes. And the way Jarvan ult works is you essentially create your own small little choke point. And if you entrap a Ryze, a Gangplank, or a Seraphine, the Syndra combo is almost guaranteed to land. And if that Jarvan hits a multi-man ultimate, then that Syndra combo will also likely hit a multi-man combo, and it's going to deal devastating damage. This kind of applies to Xayah and Gwen at the same time. So BLM in the early game, as you said, they do lack that damage. Gangplank does need time to scale. He does decent early game damage, but his spike comes more at like 3.5 items, or 2.5 rather. And similarly, same thing with Ryze. Your spike comes very, very late on into the game. Once the Rod of Ages are stacked, Seraph's Embrace is stacked, then that's where you start finding the power. But until then, you're not doing the massive burst damage that you see a late game Ryze does. And on the other side, Runtime, you can make those early game plays happen with the Jarvan Syndra. So yeah, but obviously I think if BLM do get to that later stage in the game, it is going to be tough for Syndra Xayah to walk into a Gangplank. I think even a Jarvan would find it difficult. I think the Gwen would be fine because of the W, but yeah, champions like Syndra, you do want to walk in and punish people for walking into chokes, but when Gangplank hits that power spike, that's where Syndra will find difficulty in doing what she does best. So
yeah, I definitely agree. When you look at the comp of Black Manta, there is a lot of zoning there. You have the Seraphine poking you from a distance. Like you said, you have those GP barrels that suddenly, if you start trying to walk through, later on into the game, like you said, when you hit that 3 items and you hit that even 4 items, if the game goes that late, suddenly you're being crit by 900, 800 by one barrel.
Yeah, yep.
And you lost half of your HP before the fight even starts. And if you are someone like Syndra, who, yes, you might have a Zonius, but you'd have a ton of HP to play around, suddenly it's going to be a GP barrel into a Seraphine ult, into all of the CC that Black Manta do have in their back pocket. And once you get hit by all of that, you're kind of just gone. So I feel like you said, definitely agree, there's a lot of zoning there on the side of Black Manta, but definitely things like Syndra's poke damage can be a great tool as well to get you into those chokes. Jarvan, like you said already, is a champion that has very easy engage into a comp like Black Manta's. Rise, like you said, not very short, not very long range there. Yes, people do tend to run the phase rush on Rise to help around with him being immobile. But if you're stuck in a cataclysm, all you can do is run around very fast.
Yeah,
And you just still can't really go anywhere.
yeah,
So-
you can't really go anywhere. And there's so I think looking at both comps and the strengths and weaknesses, I think there are two key abilities on both sides that can really turn the tide of the fights. If there's a jump on the carries from the Jarvan, I think it's so essential that we get a big Seraphine ult from Quishy to turn that fight into their favor. If the Seraphine ult isn't large, that's where BLM's team fighting gets really difficult, because that Seraphine ult will essentially buy time. It's going to hit a large amount of members on the runtime side, and you know, if Gangplank, let's say, gets jumped on, gets stunned by the Syndra, if the Seraphine ult is big, Gangplank can pop an orange, set up the barrels, and do massive damage along with the Rise EQ. So it's a really good neutralizing tool against compositions like Jarvan, Syndra, and Maokai, where you want to just jump in on the enemy team. But obviously that depends on the positioning of Quishy. If he is caught in the middle of that, he will get blown up as well, and that's something that he can't really afford to do in order to turn the tide for his team in these fights. And similarly on runtime, if you're the Gwen here, that Hallowed Mist is so essential for fights. You pop the Hallowed Mist, you don't have to worry about Seraphine, Gangplank, or Rise damage at all. It's not going to hit you, and all you have to do is just focus on what's in front of you. With the ultimate and the Q and the E as well, with a attack speed bonus, you're probably going to run Nash's Tooth into Riftmaker as well for on-hit damage. You're going to be able to shred the Scion Nautilus without any fear that you're going to get one shot from a Seraphine, Gangplank, or Rise. So yeah, those are the two key tools from both sides to look out for when it comes to the essential team fighting. I think obviously there are other stuff, but I definitely have my eyes on how the Gwen W gets used and how the Seraphine ultimate gets used.
I definitely agree. And you were talking about the Hollowed Mist. I feel like Gwen overall as a champion is a big thing for the comp of runtime. It is going to be the main tool you have to cut down this jungle Scion. And now that we are on the Rift, already seeing Linus walk up very menacingly towards Corona's jungle. But outside of that, we are seeing no funny business level 1, no funny invades. Even with a Nautilus in the game, neither team doesn't want to put too many risks out there when it comes to level 1.
Yeah, I'm very surprised BLM weren't looking for anything in the level 1, because I actually think the level 1 is incredible, Nautilus own, but it's fine. We just get a standard 5-point from both teams. Linus, of course, will try to look for some first strike proc. But yeah, I don't expect much to be happening in the early game from BLM. However, that being said, I do know that their playstyle heavily revolves around top lane and making sure Linus is ahead. So do expect Caliber to ditch the lane phase at quite early on and look for players around top side. That does definitely seem to be a recurring theme with this squad. But on the other side, runtime, you have a Jarvan, as I said, look for him to see if he's going to be making any aggressive plays in the early game. Yeah,
definitely. And I feel like 7x, we might be in for a long one here. Looking at the champions on both teams, yes, we're talking about this Jarvan Syndra combo a lot better than BLM are when it comes to the early stages of the game, but still a lot of scaling when it comes to both sides. Syndra, Gwen, Xayah, Seraphine, Rise, GP, all these champions that don't mind whatsoever going to the later stages of the game, as they are pushing for a level 2 here on the side of BLM spotlight. We'll see if they manage to fish anything out. Ridgeline is available, but Caliber doesn't want to throw it out, doesn't want to get caught too far in, as we do see Runtime spot lane just chilling under tower, respecting the level 2. Very good play from them. But yeah, I am expecting, unless something crazy happens, a long haul, as you can already see BLM, good words from them coming from into Runtime jungle.
Yeah, really nice utilization of the 5-point here, and I think, I'm going to stop myself as there's a gank in top.
Gank coming through. Hallowed Mist is here, is not going to deny the knockup, but should be enough to get him out, not taking too much damage here for the moment when it comes to the Gwen Linus not getting the barrel off quite yet. On the
Oh.
mean side, first blood. Wishy ends up going down. Caliber flashes out as well, and Wishy ends up dying with having flash up. I assume it was a Maokai twisted advanced flash combo, but it does mean that Runtime ends up getting that early kill as we have a gank in the mid lane. Case Maze making his way over is gonna land the knock up here. It should be a kill for the side of Black Manta. We'll see who this ends up going to. 99 is trying to make his way out, but he's gonna get taken out by Denzer here. Condatino is gonna be the next one on the chopping block if they can find him, but he might just make his way out. Wishy, that is not where you wanna be, my friend, in no man's land. And he's gonna have to burn his flash for his sins. We'll see who ends up securing this crab. Case Maze. Smite is up for both junglers. I believe it was Case who ended up getting it. This is gonna be a flag and drag. Going in here, Case does not want this 1v1 Conqueror, gets popped here as well for Condatino. It's going to be a flash forward from Denzer coming through. Condatino getting very, very low here. Shield does end up popping and does end up getting the flag and drag out as well. Caliber might hex flash over the wall here. This could be a kill. Oh, there's gonna be the flash coming through. What is going on right now as Denzer is gonna be 0 man here. No resources behind him. Takes a tower shot to try kill 99 here, and Condatino making a run towards his mid laner, trying to help him out, but the bot lane of Runtime is slowly approaching towards this fight. BLM needs to get out quick if they don't want to get collapsed on by the Maokai running over, and after all that, the gold is still dead even, and nobody dies.
Yeah, so someone needs to make a meme about play-by-play casting against BLM, like with an oxygen mask. Like, okay, I'm just waiting to see if there's anything happening before I continue. Yeah, loads of stuff happening there. I think both junglers trying to be proactive in the early game, and just the general theme against BLM, you know that there's going to be so much attention towards Linus as K's Maze, like, level 3, instantly ganking for his top laner. And if you're against BLM, I think I really like what Runtime have done here. They basically ignore their bot lane to an extent where you can just go there, punish them whenever you like. And we see the CS lead already as Kano Contandino. I'm gonna call him Kano. we see Kano get into bot lane. We get a kill on the Nautilus and flash blown on the Seraphine. But then K's Maze are seeing that the response there is to make a play onto the Syndra, blowing the flash and getting the kill, getting Denzer a bit further ahead in a bit of a volatile matchup here. So that's really nice for him. And yeah, essentially a lot of action happening. But I think if we take a look across the board, there's a CS lead for Gwen, or even, you could say, despite getting ganked early. There is a CS lead for Sion, but he is a tank, so that doesn't really mean too much, and it is a job. Mid is in the favor of BLM, but more importantly, bot lane, we see Xayah 2.3k gold against 1.9, much further ahead, and Dragon as well secured for BLM.
And mainly, I think, like you said, gonna be Dragon picked up here as well. And already, we're seeing the Sion make another visit towards the top lane, Case Maze, trying to get Linus as ahead as possible. And this is what we're talking about, Sovenix. Earlier, they want to play through Linus, they want to play through the top laner. Denzer making his way up here as well, might be looking for the dive. The wave is less than ideal for this dive at the moment, but the next wave should be coming in very, very shortly. Kyrona is going to have face check in this. The Hallowed Mist getting burned early there. Truth Spell Doom for Kyrona. He's going to try and walk this out. Denzer could look for the kill here. It's going to be the ultimate coming out of GP as well, but with the needle work slow, not going to be finding the kill onto Kyrona. But already the pressure towards that top lane is massive from the side of BLM.
Yeah, big pressure, but I have to say, insanely well played by Ranza Corona. As, like, it's very easy. A lot of top laners there would sit there and be like, I really, really need to catch this wave, otherwise I'm doomed. But the thing about BLM is, like, if you get that kill on Linus, they will stagger that play over and over again and make sure you have the worst time in your life. So not dying there is essential for him to not go 0-15 in this game. Yeah, as I said, this is the BLM playstyle. They will pressure your top side like crazy. But a player like Linus, they almost live and breathe by him being ahead or not being ahead in the early game. So this is the BLM playstyle, and I have to commend Runtime. They've been playing for bot lane. The Xayah is ahead, and they have been making sure that Linus isn't pulling too far ahead. I think just a small CS lead for him right now But in comparison to what I have seen, this is definitely a tiny, tiny victory for Runtime.
Definitely, but you know, enough of small victories, enough of those small puzzle pieces, and suddenly you have a bigger picture in front of you, right? And that's what BLM are trying to play towards, trying to get Linus any leads he can get, as we are a little bit more trading in the mid lane. And with Runtime securing that first dragon, like you said, playing towards that top bottom side as well, as Case is trying to make his way over. And again, in the top lane, Kyrona just can't breathe, not being allowed. That's going to be Sign Ultimate coming through as well. Cataclysm is going to be blocking that one out. Kano trying to make his way out. Scatter is going to miss. No C connecting there. Flash forward, but Caliber goes wide with the dredge line. Good sidestep there from LL99. Clandestino still getting chased down. There's your flash forward, but the shield coming out is going to keep him alive. And Kano makes out by a hair's breadth there towards that mid lane. It is going to be Herald secured for BLM at the back end of that play, but the Jarvan lives.
Jarvan lives, and you have to feel BLM. Yes, you will get the Herald, but that is a bit of a stinger to blow 2 flashes and not being able to get the kill. I really like the way Kano played that with the Cataclysm, hearing the Sion ultimate, trusting that his ultimate will block it. He flashes to keep the Rise in there without him having to be in there with him, as there is another play into top lane.
Oh no, I feel like Kyrona might not be so lucky to get out of this one. It's gonna be hooked there.
No way.
As it comes through as well, Denzer is gonna be behind him, trying to turn this around on the side of Runtime. It's gonna be the flashing as well. Kyrona is gonna be the first one to follow the Gwen. Ends up going down. Denzer has no mana to play with here, but it might be just enough as Kano does not have many HP left. That's gonna be 2 kills so far going down. Case Maze trying to do what he can with the zombie Sion. Flag and Drag goes back there. Denzer taking so many power shots. Linus is gonna fall. Denzer is gonna fall as well. Kano is gonna pick that one up and ends up gifting the kill to his mid laner, and it is complete disaster for the side of BLM, and this time the top lane pressure ends up backfiring.
Yeah, it does backfire. I think that's the theme with BLM is you make the same play basically every game. It doesn't take long for the enemy team to download your information, as we see here. All Runtime did was identify that, listen, there's going to be a ton of people going top lane for a random turret dive. Let's just be there and punish them for it afterwards. And that's exactly what Runtime did. And we see a 5-3 kill score in the favor of Runtime. And I have to say, adaptation from Runtime has been immaculate for this game, because I think one thing BLM are fantastic at is taking this fight, this hyper aggression to you, and getting into your heads where it's like to the point where you get frustrated, you get so tilted. As a top laner, playing against this looks unbearable. It looks so rough. Like, if this was me, I'd be like, Jesus Christ. But if you're Runtime here, you just chill, be patient, be calm. This Gwen has played these dives immaculately, and he's waited for his team to back him up and be there, and they've punished BLM for it. But we'll see how the rest of the game continues. As you know, I'm sure BLM, they either keep doing what they always do, or they have a change in strategy. So
yeah, we're just gonna have to wait a little bit to see that, as we do have a little bit of a pause as we get back into the game. As I just had the time to say that, as well as we're already back into the game. I do believe one of the players had a little bit of a connection issue, but yeah, I definitely agree. That was very good timing and very good play from the side of Runtime to respond to that play. Managed to secure as well a little bit kills back there, and the main thing is LN99 picked up most of them, as Scatter does manage to hit 2 there up towards the mid lane, but with that, the Syndra getting a little bit of a lead. We were talking about the late game scaling. The quicker you can get these items onto that Syndra, onto that mid laner, means that the quicker you can run around the map. But again, Kyrona is just the target of BLM right now.
Yeah.
They're just, speaking of breathing, he doesn't get to play the game. It's gonna be Dragon secured for Runtime here, but Kyrona is just not having a good time.
Yeah, as I said, this is their BLM bread and butter. They play through Linus, and yeah, he's a higher resource player, but I actually think if you can just survive this early game onslaught, then heading into late game, your team essentially will come out the benefactor. The problem with this obviously is that if you are to decent flash, but probably shouldn't have been pushed up. But yeah, if you if you die to these things, this is where BLM get real scary. But Denzer actually stepping a bit too far up here.
Ooh, Twisted Advance coming through, Root does go down, LN99 is gonna pick up another kill for himself, and this time it's gonna be a shutdown towards the Syndra, and slowly but surely it's becoming a problem as there's another 1v1, 2v1 in the top lane. Corona is gonna try to find a solo killer onto Linus. Twisted Advance is up, Bashira is trying to make his way over, does end up going for the Scion instead, doesn't end up getting the range for the GP. Barrels coming down, beautiful zoning there out of line, trying to keep his jungler alive, but LN99 again has made his way over. No flash for Bashira quite yet, which does mean it should be an escape. Kano 3 levels above Caliber means that he should be able to pick up this kill, but it's gonna be a QE instead of an EQ coming out of Kano, and doesn't end up getting the combo in, and Caliber gets to walk away and live another day for the moment.
Yeah. I assume Kano wanted to QE to put damage down without taking the flag and drag, because going that close on the turret against Nautilus is definitely risky. But yeah, interesting phase of play, and I want to touch like on the BLM playstyle. Because of this heavy top lane focus, there is so much angle playing against BLM to punish the other sides of the map, and they're doing exactly that once again, as Adenza getting rooted up.
He's gonna get rooted up, CC'd, scattered. He's gonna try and make his way out. Phase rush OP, baby, as he's gonna water walk himself up back onto his tower. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. It does leave the bot side a little bit vulnerable, and we've seen that Runtime having 2 Drakes up compared to BLM at the moment. So once we get into this mid game, into this later stage of the game, we'll see how that ends up panning out. Caliber making a very aggressive step there towards the jungle of Runtime here, and is gonna be able to survive. But Bashira is definitely around. Bashira is looking and hunting for anything he can find, as this Makai so far has been playing pretty aggressively, I would say.
Very aggressively. It's very easy to
Support 1v1.
Support everyone. It's very difficult in this situation as a support to really decide what to do, because it's like, on one hand you want to stay in lane and punish the Seraphine for being alone for the whole game, but then you can also decide to match these roams and be aggressive, just like your opposite number. Bashira has gone with that angle to play on the map and look for plays, and it has benefited very well, as there's another fight here.
That is a long Twisted Advance. The Q is gonna find 2 getting knocked back here. Caliber is gonna be in trouble. He's gonna get taken down. So is K's Maze. And that is 2 more kills for Runtime. A 1000 gold lead. And LN99 is absolutely zooming away with this game. 4-on-1, 600 gold shutdown at the moment. And with them having a replay as well. Why don't you take us over this one, Sofmix?
Yeah, I think the replay here, very box standard. BLM looking for a play, but in a open water that does not belong to them. So Caliber steps a little bit too far forward. Scatter the Weak lands onto him from LL99, allowing Bashir to get the jump on Caliber. The flash away isn't enough as the Twisted Advance catches onto him and he falls down. As Bashir are looking for even more plays.
The Encore was good there, but does get Featherstormed by fire. He's gonna be a flash forward from Denzer. He's gonna pick up that kill, a 1-for-1, but a shutdown going for the right is gonna mean that is a gold pickup here for the side of BLM. Silent ultimate coming down. Here comes the pain train. Linus hiding in the shadows until he can emerge victorious there. L99 trying to see what he can do, trying to give the kill over to Linus. If you're BLM, I would assume here lookup comes over, but it's gonna be K's Maze who picks up that shutdown, and this Scion is slowly but surely getting tankier and tankier. Linus finishing up his first item as well. This GP is starting to become a serious problem for the side of Runtime.
Yeah, serious problem indeed. As we see, look at the replay. Rise, Denzer, amazing amounts of move speed, able to get the catch onto the Xayah. And at this point, it's a 4 versus 2. The TP came from Linus from behind. There was no response from the Gwen, so it was an easy pickup. Fantastic play from BLM, as this game was slowly looking like it was getting out of their hands, but this play has brought them right back into it, and we want to keep the eyes on these 2 solo laners here. Denzer and Linus, they are the strong ones, they are the ones with the gold, and despite LL99 having fantastic plays in the early game, Denza has kept up with the farm and actually is in the gold lead, especially with the shutdowns going into his hands. So, the two carries from BLM are in a fantastic spot and has been set up fantastically. So, we'll see how the rest of the game pans out, but right now, if you are BLM, you're gonna look to execute this sort of 1-3-1 situation where your GP is stronger than the Gwen, and the Rise has managed to pull away from the Syndra, so great situation for them. One thing to look out for, obviously, is that middle part where the Xayah is much stronger than the Seraphine, so yeah.
Definitely as well when it comes to these sort of isolated 2v2s. I would argue Seraphine is pretty useful in 5v5 as we have a fight kicking off here towards the bot side of the map. Denzer is gonna be the one who is first up in trouble. The Rise is going low. That the Blade Caller is massive, picking up so many kills there. And keep your eyes on fire because he's burning up BLM at the moment, and the Scion is gonna have to ult back on over to his base, and the Feather Storm was absolutely huge for the side of Runtime, and it is a massive fight for them.
Massive fight indeed. In the bot lane, we saw the BLM squad using their utility to get to that fight. This time around, Runtime said, this one's for us, as they teleport into the fight and turn the tide around. And we look at the twisted advance from Bashira landing onto basically every member of the BLM squad, and it was down to the Xayah, Syndra, and Gwen to shred through the front line and take down their names. And in the end, Runtime completely wiped the team fight, and they are in full control of this game.
And this is where Runtime starts to become very strong, as Denzer is trying to see what he can do to defend against this bot lane tower. The siege is ongoing for Runtime, and this is gonna be the next big objective that they're gonna want to secure for themselves. A couple of minutes for that Baron to spawn, so if they can get this before that 20-minute mark, it should open up the map a lot for them, as this next wave should be able to do it, but they are a little bit wary, as they do not see anyone but Lidus on the map for the moment. And with this Baron coming up soon, Sovanix, who would you favor at the moment when it comes to the current game state?
I think in terms of, if we're looking at summoner spells here, the GP and Scion flashes will be down for a long time, and obviously Scion isn't a key target, but having that flash to like set up a play for the gangplank, and in terms of the gangplank, having the flash to be safe from this very straightforward wombo combo from the Jarvan Syndra is going to be essential. So if we're talking about a Baron fight in the river, this is where BLM will have to be careful. GP will have to sit back and play extremely safe, ensuring that he doesn't get caught in the middle of, as I said, this crazy wombo combo that is, again, emphasis on how easy it is to execute, because, simple as Jarvan EQ ultimate, Syndra puts the stuff on top of it, and boom, bada beam, you are dead. So, yeah. But on the other side, if you're Runtime, there's no flashes on the Jarvan. I mean, you still can engage without flash. Jarvan can EQ from 9 billion screens away and execute a team fight engage. So yeah, I think it's going to be about who gets to that objective first and takes control of the area, as we see Runtime looking for a dive onto Linus.
And this is the flashless Linus you were talking about, nothing to get away. Runtime looking for that pick before that Baron, they're gonna find it. Linus ends up falling very quickly there, but the Barons are doing big work, ultimate as well. Kano not having the highest HP numbers at the moment, could look for a turn back here on the side of BLM. They know for a fact that Jarvan is low, not a lot of HP to his name. Both mid laners not having TP up actually on the NL99, which means Baron is gonna be started up here on the side of Runtime, trying to get this one. Kano manages to secure some HP for himself, which means he's gonna be a bit healthier now, but keep your eye on the TP from Denzer as it's gonna come through, and NL99 cannot stop this one. His TP is gonna be up very soon as well, but so far it will be a 4v5. TP gets channeled now, and the fight is huge. Caliber is gonna be the first one to fall, but there's low health bars all around, but LL99 with the scatter on too, cleans up house, completely mops up the side of BLM, and again Runtime taking the fight for themselves and showing BLM that they're not here to play around.
Yeah, not here to play around at all. And I think the key factor of this fight going in the way of Runtime was that earlier dive in the top lane. But we can break down this fight just as it was. K's Maze looking for that engage, trying to trap him into the pit. Bashira did a fantastic job engaging here, meaning that the Runtime members could move away from the Baron pit and away from an essential choke point that benefits the BLM squad. Big scouts of the week landing onto 2, ensuring a burst coming out from Ranza Corona and turning the fight in the favor of Runtime. So they are in a massive control of this game, and I have to say I am so impressed with the Runtime gameplay from basically every metric, from setting up the team fights, the pre-fights plays or warding, vision control, setting up of waves. And more importantly, I really like the patience of Runtime here. The fact that Syndra didn't have teleport initially, and I'm assuming that the communication was, I've got teleport very, very soon, just hold out a little bit, and I will be there to clean up and set up the rest of the fight. So, great stuff from Runtime.
I would definitely agree. Runtime showing huge promise as Denzer is gonna find himself a tree in that bush, but not gonna get stepped on at the moment. Does end up running away with that phase rush being procced. And like you were saying, Runtime being very impressive at the moment, making great decisions for themselves. And you can tell from both of these teams that neither of them do not mind playing on stage whatsoever. I don't see any nerves coming through, I feel like, for either team. Like we said earlier, 7X, it is only a show match after all, so really nothing big on the table except the bragging rights. But even then, this macro from both teams have been, I feel like, very, very good. And yes, Runtime did pick up the fight, but this Baron is still on the cards. And with them being on Soul Point as well, Cloud's not the biggest thing in the world, but still Soul Point nonetheless. They are sort of on a timer. 4 minutes till that dragon spawns, so once it does, it is going to be a fight on 2 fronts.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. It is a show match. There isn't really much to play for except for bragging rights. But I don't know if anyone saw, but there was a recent video. Oh, I'll stop myself. This is a fight.
Cataclysm is available here, not gonna get popped quite yet, but the root after C comes down. Case is gonna have to flash out.
Oh, look at the Gwen.
Ultimate is doing huge damage. Look at the Gwen in the backline. He's found his way in. Corona has absolutely snipped any winning chances that BLM have, as LN99 is gonna pick up Scatter. A lot of low health bars here on the side of Runtime, but Denzer is just gonna get nuked down once he gets out. And LN99 with not the 1, not the 2, but the 3 kills, the triple kill for the Syndra.
Triple kill for LL99. As we see here, there's a teleport flank from Ranza Corona, meaning causing absolute havoc in the backline of BLM. Denzer was caught by the Twisted Advance on the Raptor camp, so was kind of left untouched and was able to put out a high amount of DPS, but in the end, it's a 1 versus 3, so LL99 pumping out the damage, getting himself a triple kill, and again, Runtime. That fight was closer than every single fight that we've seen for the rest of the game, but it just wasn't enough as BLM, they were just too far behind, and there's too much reliance on Denzen. You have to ask, you play so heavily for this Gangplank, but looking at the scoreboard, you wouldn't even think that there was any attention to the Gangplank. So it's definitely rough for BLM because you invest so much resource into your top side, and then fast forward to 24 minutes in the game, and suddenly this Gwen is significantly more fed than the Gangplank, which is a rough spot. And I think personally for me, this has always been my criticism of BLM, is like, you have this borderline cheesy playstyle of let's just get top ahead, but if it doesn't work, it is just a bit doomed, as there is a Baron fight here.
Very one-dimensional, I'd agree. Fire has 1 HP here. They're gonna try to make a run for the hills. Not a fight they wanna take. Runtime trying to get away with as many Baron buffs as possible. There is Sign Ultimate still available if Case does want to pop that out, but they're gonna be just tunneling up a couple of bases here. I don't think they're gonna away with any of these, as there's gonna be the encore pop, but not gonna find any value. Hallowed Mist here is buying Corona a lot of time. Cataclysm is still available. Contanino has found himself in the back line.
No way.
Cannot live, and it's a disaster for BLM. The hunter becomes the hunted, as it is going to be the Scion passive, finding 1 kill back, but L99 has finally found his way back. Linus with the barrel is going to try pop Chiron, but no crit coming through means not a lot of damage as well, and they're going to make their way out, but it's going to be Runtime who Runtime them away with the Baron.
That is so unfortunate, Chris. You hear the Seraphine ultimate just missing the recalling targets. LL99 was able to scrap away from that one, and I believe it was fire actually. But yeah, a bit too far, and it was under tire. I actually really like what Kano was doing here, materializing himself into the bush to punish the overextension from Black Manta. So yeah, really good. I have to say, Runtime, they are playing this game with the patience and the, I guess you could say, level-headedness of a hyper-experienced team against a squad like BLM, who have played together for so long. And if we compare the two rosters, on paper, BLM should be a much more united front than Runtime. But as we are seeing, Runtime in this game look like the unbreakable chain that seems that are in the face of Black Manta as there's another fight in the mid lane.
Another fight in the mid lane, but Kano is not gonna want this one as he gets completely popped by that 700 crit barrel. Bajira looking for a fight, you're looking for a fight back, seeing what he can find. Flash through the mass is coming through, the Rise is the target, the CC's big zone is buying him a little bit of time. Encore manages to hit too, but they're gonna drop, and it's gonna be the Gwen tearing through the side of BLM. Kyrona, see what he can find, does get stunned up here. LL99 is not gonna connect that scatter, a little bit too far out of range, but the mid lane tower is gonna be the focus. The pings end up going down, trying to push this wave as much as they can. Linus is trying to make his way over with the wave clear he's got with the barrels. No ultimate available for any of these members so far. It was all burned in the prior engagement, and LL99 just trying to get any poke damage, trying to see what he can find. The barrel is big, but the flash is even bigger. Linus is gonna fall, and the double kill comes through, and with those 2 kills, scratch that 3 kills as Wishy is trying to make his way out, but the flash follow from fire is big, and it's gonna be the ace. It's gonna be the Sion respawn, but Case Maze cannot do anything here as he's a lonely Sion defending against the world. And Denzer is here, could have the wave clear to keep this game alive for the moment, but the next wave coming in might just spell doom. But I don't know if Runtime have what it takes to finish this game here. They do still have a couple of mirrors available, but Caliber respawning very soon here, and Linus 10 seconds out as well. Denzer needs to buy time for this GP, needs to try clear these waves out, needs to be the Rise that he can, try to keep his team alive into this game, and he's managed to do it. But even if BLM are still not finished, even if their Nexus is still up, it is looking like gloomy days for the rest of this game if you're a fan of BLM.
Yeah, gloomy days indeed. And for BLM, that was so unfortunate as Denzer was 1 Q away from turning that fight in his hand. As speaking of
Cataclysm, Denzer did end up getting out of that one. Encore goes a little bit wide. Sion Pain Train coming through. Bashira might be the sacrificial lamb, but K's, I don't know whether he stopped that prematurely or ran out of range. I think it was stopped prematurely, but we'll have to see as they do make a run for the hills here, and Runtime do end up making their way out. And I'm a little bit surprised they managed to live with all 5 members being alive there, but no kills for the side of BLM.
No kills for BLM, and this is a rough situation because you've essentially been dominated on all fronts. And I think this fight displays that perfectly. You get the catch onto Kano, and you're thinking, 5 versus 4, our Rise is fed, this is perfect. Bashira, with the confidence of the world, just flashes onto your most fed member. The Encore kind of only hit the Maokai, so it didn't really have much value. And the Gwen that you played for, or against rather, just completely shreds you apart. And for BLM, that has to feel rough, and I think as the rest of the game continues, you have to feel that if BLM weren't able to win a 4 versus 5, that this game has definitely slipped out of their hands.
I think it slipped out of their hands a long time ago. 10,000 gold lead for Runtime. Kirona just says, screw you, Linus. I'm gonna ignore you and take the tower in front of your eyes. As this is a Gwen that was dived or attempted to dive 3 times in the laning phase, and BLM are just stuck under tower, nowhere to go, one-shotted by fire. TP comes through, and we'll see what they can find here. That's gonna be Denzer with the TP, but fire might just be able to one-shot him here. Denzer is buying a lot of time zoning the members of Runtime here. Sion ultimate goes through the Rise portal, ends up going straight into the wall dancer. He's trying to see what he can do, but Cataclysm coming down might just be too much for the Rise to handle with a Jarvan on his face. Zonius does buy him a little bit of time, LM99. Meanwhile, towards the top side, 1v1ing the AD carry Surfing. He's gonna find the kill back, but it's gonna be just the Jarvan by so much time, and the scatters the entire squad of BLM straight into their graves. And Kyrona said, screw this game, I've had enough of playing around. I'm just gonna run into your base, snip the Nexus away, and snips out BLM's winning chances alongside that.
Wow, that was I think going into mid game, it was looking close, and then it turned into a complete stomp of the BLM squad, and I'm so impressed with this Runtime team. LL99, you had Fire, you had Bashira, you had Cautious Cat. I think every single player on Runtime just completely outperformed their opposite number. And I have to emphasize the fact that Cautious Cat basically was playing lane 1 versus 4 and still outperformed Linus. I think just speaks volume to how much Runtime performed in this game. Yeah, as I said, yes, this is a show match, of course. The only thing at stakes are bragging rights, but you have to say, when it comes to bragging rights, I think there's a lot of value in the SLE when it comes to bragging rights, because recently today, I don't know if you saw, there was a video released of some sort of power ranking system, and BLM was ranked at 4, but you have to feel, losing to Runtime in this manner with the pedigree on your roster, it's not looking good for BLM squad in the last 2 show matches.
Makes me wonder, like you were talking about, is that number a little bit too high? Like you said, yes, bragging rights is all that's on the table, but losing this hard, 10,000 gold lead down, this is a 10-on-1 Gwen that was dived 4 times, was not allowed to play the game in the early game whatsoever, and still manages to keep up with Linus, who got so much help from his team. That to me is just so impressive that I would definitely, for my sake at least, give Kyrona the MVP of that game. I don't know if you'd agree with me or if you had someone else in mind, but that's definitely who I think was the shining light for Runtime.
Yeah, I think when it comes to MVP from Runtime, I think you can literally make an argument for every single player on the team. Like, the setup that came from Bashira, also, previously known as Kalaski, was unreal. He was flash engaging at every opportunity, and he was punishing BLM in a way that perfectly diminishes the BLM playstyle. There was that one twisted advance into mid lane, basically caught every single member of the BLM squad. And when you're a Maokai and support, that is exactly what you are trying to do. That's exactly the kind of playstyle you're trying to execute. Similarly with Fire, this DPS that he was putting out in these team fights, he was kind of an unsung hero in this game, not much attention put towards him. And I think in general, if you're an ADC playing against BLM, the usual case is like you're not really talked about too much because, yeah, camera's barely on you anyway, but big damage onto him. And as you said, I do have to agree. Like, LL99, what a game from him, but more specifically, Cautious Cat in top lane. When you get played around like this, it is so easy to go 0-10. It is so easy to capitulate, and the game falls out of your hand, and suddenly the enemy top laner is one-shotting everyone in your team. He didn't do that. The amount of turret dives he survived was unreal. He was playing against the Gangplank. Let me continue the sentence. Sion, Rise, and a Nautilus, right? And he won. He won the 1 versus 4 matchup, essentially. And then the cherry on top is at the end getting the solo kill on your opposite number, who was given the resources of the royal family of England, was incredible. So big props to Cautious Cat, and I have to agree with you, my MVP. But all round from I forgot the jungler's name, but yeah, from jungle, from top to bot, fantastic performances as we are already into the second game draft.
I would definitely agree. I feel like it was a bit of a, an ego check on the side of Runtime's top laner there, just to make sure, make sure that Linus knows his place, making sure that he's sure that, can still be solo killed even with all that attention. Like you said, already heading into game 2 draft here, and it's already 2 very tanky boys picked up here. Makai, Rel, both S tier champions at the moment, and we'll see what Runtime ends up pairing with. This Kaiser being banned, obviously one of the best AD carries to pair up with the Rel, but outside of that, you do still have a couple more options.
Yeah, more options indeed, and I think in terms of how the two teams rather will switch things up, I don't imagine they will too much. I don't see BLM as a squad that have that much versatility, and similarly to Runtime, I don't know too much about their new squad, so not much to say, but based off last game, it seems like they have a clear identity that works for them, and they're already going something similar with a Rel who can engage along with a high DPS AD carry and the Zaya. For BLM, you've got Maokai Tristana, and yeah, as I said, I expect something very, very similar from the BLM squad. They will essentially draft some utility, damage in mid lane, and then a carry top laner. So we'll see how Runtime, draft on red side against that.
Yeah, definitely, and already seeing a Tristana picked up. We'll see if that ends up being a Tristana mid instead of a Tristana ADC. I feel like we have been seeing her more towards that mid lane. Generally, it is used as a nullifier against some of the mages like Azir. Things like more mages are in the meta at the moment. Azir is the only one that comes to my mind at the moment, but Tristana could either go mid or bot. Kled being picked up as well, and this is a blind Kled, which just shows how commendable and how confident Linus is with his Kled. Already saw it banned away in game 1, I believe. So if you are the side of Runtime, they are looking at a couple of supports bans at the moment, which I do believe might just be the main target for them. But what the hell do you respond to if it's a Kled on a B3?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're Runtime...
Olaf?
Yeah, no.
Olaf's banned.
Don't pick... Olaf is a bit of a self-counter pick. Olaf actually isn't a counter into Kled. I think against Kled, if you really want to get creative, you want to go Teemo. No, I'm joking. Don't go Teemo. No, champions like Fiora, Pantheon, Kennen, I would say, are like probably your best options into a champion like Kled. Mainly duelists that can outfight the Kled. Like, I think one of Kled's strengths is that he will fight you. He'll get knocked off his horse. If he plays it well, he'll get the horse back. His bike back, and then you're suddenly at a disadvantage. But champions like Fiora, Pantheon, Kennen, they can kind of burst you down fast enough for you to not get the bike back. So I think champions like that, you want to look into, but obviously it is dependent. Like, those aren't the easiest champions to play if you don't have the expertise on it. So of course, I think you will have to, I guess, rely on what's comfortable. I think the case usually with the picks at this level is you definitely want to run with something that you're comfortable with. I think a lot of times you will see people pick the meta or what's on paper the best, but if you can't play the champion, obviously that just diminishes the point of a counter pick, because you're like, well, I suck at this champ, so I lose anyway. But we shall see. I mean, I'm assuming a player like Linus on his signature champion will know how to play the bad matchups as well, but we'll have to have a look as Tom Kench gets locked in, and we still are yet to see a ADC. Oh, that's the Seraphine once again for Quishy. As I said, BLM running with essentially the same team composition as they always do, of supportive. Basically, every position's on a supportive champion except for mid and top, and they will most likely play towards top side. I can imagine Linus will run the ignite and no teleport, whereas Runtime, I think. They have a much more balanced composition. There's DPS threats, there's engaged threats. There's not reliance on specifically a small amount of members to do the damage here. So yeah, at the moment I do like I like both compositions as it stands, and we'll just see what Runtime pick into this play.
And with the Seraphine being locked in, looks like it is going to be a Tristana mid into that Victor, I would assume, since Tristana into Rel, not the best thing in the world, as you can get your jump cancelled by the RLW. Obviously not the easiest thing in the world with how long of an animation that is, but with it being a potential threshold where we could be looking at a Rel jungle here as well for the side of Runtime, which would mix things up. And obviously last time we saw the Sion jungle, so definitely wouldn't be anything out of pocket, but with the cannon being locked in, it might just be the Rel jungle regardless. Looks like it might be a Tom Kinch towards the bot lane, and Rel jungle obviously is something that we have seen rise up for a couple of patches now, is still decent in the jungle after the buffs they did end up giving her, and we'll see what they end up cooking in the kitchen, if they have some secret strategies to go along with this. But so far, with all the 5 champions on the board, with us seeing everybody here, with the Seraphine ADC and the Tristana mid, who do you think took away this draft here? And who do you think, or how would you say this compares to Game 1 draft?
I think the biggest comparison is essentially different champions. I think both teams have picked a fundamentally similar composition to the first game. BLM, as I've already broken down, they are sticking to their style. This is a classic BLM draft. I think if you look at their match history throughout SLE, I'm pretty sure you'll find the exact same draft somewhere. Whereas Runtime, they're going for something similar to Game 1, where you've got engage in jungle support, you've got a top laner that can duel, a top laner that can take a fight to the enemy top laner, and hopefully, ideally, similar to Gwen, where you can survive the dives if you play it well. And then you've got a big DPS mage in mid with strong wave clear alongside a heavy DPS ADC with survivability in bot lane. So yeah, as I said, fundamentally similar comps, team comps, but different champions. So I think the biggest thing to look out for is last game, there was heavy late game scaling on BLM. Whereas this time around, BLM have more things to do in the early game. The Maokai, Tristana, and Kled can all utilize each other's strengths and play for 3v3s in the river. And I can imagine, obviously, if Kled does get priority, if Tristana does get priority, which I imagine she will, especially in this matchup, they can make plays on crabs, they can utilize their priority, get in the jungle, make plays in the river, and a 3v3 with Victor, Ken, and Rel isn't weak by no means, but the Tristana will have a lot more early game priority and prowess over the Victor. So that's where BLM's draft differs the most.
I definitely agree, and I am a fan of the Tristana mid pick into the Victor. I feel like you stated earlier, it makes the jungle mid duo coming out of Black Manta in the early game very, very strong, especially when you compare the Tristana Maokai against a Victor Rel. That is definitely going to go towards Black Manta when it comes to the 2v2 in the early game, which gives you, like you said, so much more room to play around. Tristana should always have prio into the Victor once you get especially once you get a couple of early points into that E, you can just completely blow up waves as the Tristana, which gives you that tempo to play around, as well gives you sort of that wave management in the mid lane, which can be very important when you're looking at junglers that want to make plays around the map. When you're looking at junglers like Maokai, junglers like Harel that like to gank, have the setup, have the CC to gank as well, which means that suddenly, when you're going in for a gank, it might not just be a Maokai show up. Suddenly you have a Tristana there as well, and a 3v1 is a lot harder to survive than a 2v1. So I'm definitely looking for Black Manta to play a lot around this Tristana and around the mid prio they're gonna have. And I think we're just gonna see them, like you said earlier, Sovanix, like their usual game plan, they're gonna be bin chilling down in the bot lane.
Yeah, I think I have to agree. There's not going to be much action in the bot lane, but heavy action in the top lane. And you mentioned the Tristana. I think they will play around the Tristana, and in doing so, indirectly play around top lane. And reason being is I imagine Denza will look to shove waves in and then move towards top side to dive the cannon. The reason, I think, as we've identified, Black Manta, they live and breathe by Linus winning lane and getting ahead in the early game. And we saw last game, when that doesn't happen, the rest of the map implodes, and at that point, Linus is a fantastic carry player, but if he isn't far ahead enough, it won't be enough to counterbalance the implosion on the other sides of the map. So, and in this particular case, the Kled versus Kennen matchup is very difficult for the Kled. Kled sticks to opponents very well, and Kennen has fantastic tools with mobility and crowd control. A good Kennen will be able to space out properly and not allow the Kled to Q him. So you essentially, like as Kled, you need to commit to EQ, which leaves you very exposed if you miss it. And you know the Kennen will kite back, continue to engage, harass you from range, and you know, use the disengage tools to play this matchup out. So I essentially, I think BLM will have to play towards that top side to make sure that this Kennen doesn't overpower the Kled and negate / neutralize this Kled to not pull ahead in the early game. So very interesting for me is to see how BLM play towards this top side, because I can almost imagine you pick this Kled on 3 on blue side for the sole purpose. So this is our star player's bread and butter. This is his signature champion. Let's play towards it. Draft continues, plays out a bit. He's got a bit of a rough matchup here, and BLM will definitely want to play towards that.
Yeah, and you said it was a rough matchup. I definitely agree. Kennen tends to be, like you said, one of the good answers to Kled. I will say now we do have a little bit of a DC from the ADC of one of the teams at the moment, so we do have a little bit of a delay, but we'll be in game momentarily. And going back a little bit into the matchups, like you said, a very top lane sided for Runtime. And with that being said, I would expect, as per usual, for Black Manta's bot lane to sort of just chill, especially when you're running a Rakan Seraphine, not known as the most aggressive lanes in the world. And I think I'm most excited for that mid lane, because we've seen what LN99 can do on a champion like Syndra on a control mage. Runtime is a team that we are yet to see play outside of the game we just watched. It is a new team for us, which to me means that it'll mainly show how the players play with each other, how they can play sort of single-handedly, how they can handle their own lane. And for the game 1, we saw Runtime play very well as a team. So now I think it's time for them to show us individual players to see out their lanes. Obviously, we've seen that top lane. We've seen what he can do even in a 4v1, even in a 3v1, like you mentioned earlier. What he can do even when he's getting dived under tower, even under all that heavy pressure. So I'm looking at this Tristana. I'm looking at LN99 to see how he plays on such a different champion when it comes to the Tristana compared to the Syndra, compared to a control mage and a marksman. Very different champions, very different playstyle as well. So that personally is, at least for me, what I'm gonna be looking forward to. Because I feel like if Sovonix Runtime takes this game, or takes the 3 games today 3-0, they're definitely gonna be a team a lot of people are gonna have hot takes about.
Yes, and I think already, just off the back of the first game, it's already an argument enough to have attention towards the Runtime squad. BLM, as I said, they're a staple squad. They're a staple team in the SLE, and they are a well-knit gang. They have been playing together with this core roster for a very, very long time. They are as synergized as you can get when it comes to the SLE. But in that game, you wouldn't even be able to tell that they were a long-standing roster. It looks like Runtime completely dominated them in the aspect of being a better team. And in a case of BLM, that's usually their unique selling point when it comes to fighting against oppositions. And you know, if that wasn't enough, then you have to definitely put some respect on that Runtime name, and more importantly, put some respect on the names that exist within the Runtime squad. The you know, similar storyline, long-standing players, but I think players that definitely go under the radar. A lot of people will see players like Cautious Cat and Kolaski, now known as Bashira, as the kind of community existing players. You know, they're there because they're long-standing members of the SLA community. They enjoy it. But after this game, people like myself, people like top players of the SLE will have to start putting some attention and respect on these people's names, because based off last game, they've improved to a point where they are in the conversation when it comes to top SLE players. So I am very interested to see how the rest of this game pans out. in the rest of the series. But yeah, you touched on the mid lane matchup here, and I think one thing that's very interesting is that the reason why you do B1 Tristana a lot of the times is because you can flex that into the bot lane. The only thing though or if you are against BLM and you see the B1 Tristana, is you almost guarantee it that it's going into the mid lane because they won't put a champion with high priority like that onto Quishy. So I personally think picking something like the Victor into a Tristana is almost like a self-counter pick, and of course, it depends on how much research and how much knowledge you have of your opponents. And in this case, Victor isn't the worst champion into the Tristana because there is a world where you posture well enough, Tristana jumps in, tries to look for an opportunity to get some reset on you. If you drop your force field well enough, then you can kind of negate that full-on engage and pump some damage back into the Tristana. It really depends on how well you play with your range. And utilizing your Q, I think there's a bit of a Korean animation cancel thing you can do with Victor on the Q that is essential to execute efficiently against the Tristana who wants to all-in you. But yeah, I think I would say a bit of criticism towards the runtime. This was in my eyes at least a very obvious read that the Tristana was going into mid, and I think Victor not the best pick into it, but obviously LL99 fantastic first game, so I think we'll have to see how he operates this Victor into the Tristana, because the way I see it, this Tristana is either going to be completely useless or going to go 15-0. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think there is, like you said, a lot of pressure on LL99 this game. He's gonna be the one alongside the jungler on the side of Runtime. Kano and LL99 are gonna be the ones who have sort of control over the early game, especially like you said, into a Victor should have that push in the mid lane. It's gonna be up to them too to dictate the tempo of the game. Yes, Maokai is very good at setting up kills. With all the CC you have, with the Twisted Advance, with a little bit of damage as well, coming out of the Saplings paired on top of a Tristana. Yes, it is very easy to set up kills with. And I feel like we saw that in game number 1 as well. Kano, as a jungler, likes to play these junglers that have CC and that can put some pressure early. We saw it on the Jarvan. He got 24 assists in that one game. He likes to be a team player. He likes to give his team a chance to shine and be that supportive jungler that they can rely on, be the one who makes a difference in the early game. And I feel like that's the Kano I hope to see this game as well, because I feel like that's what his team needs. I feel like if you, like you said, Sovanix, if you fall behind on the Tristana, if you go 0-1-15, it's gonna be very difficult for the Runtime's jungle mid duo to play the game. It's gonna be very difficult for them to make any plays around the map with this Tristana Maokai that they have picked up for themselves. So definitely high remarks for them when it comes to that mid jungle. And I think outside of that, it's gonna be the top side for the most part. I mean, you always know it's gonna be the top side when it comes to a Black Manta matchup. But even more so now with these matchups being so skill expressive, a lot of the eyes are gonna be on the top side. All of our cameras are gonna be on the top side. And if Runtime's top laner, if he can execute this matchup, like you said earlier, Sovanix, I feel like there's gonna be a lot of people who are gonna be scared to go up against this guy because he's gonna have a name for himself. And like you said, Linus being a staple top laner, being a staple SLE member, if you can beat him, you're in for a very good showing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I big emphasis on the BLM playstyle, of course. But that's not to say that, a particular member on their team, potentially named Denzer, is someone you can ignore. If we look at the way the early game went of last game, even though it did pan out and it did end up going against him, he was 4-2 when LL99 was 4-2. So he's not a player that you can ignore, and he's definitely not a player that goes under the radar. So as much as, Linus is the attention for BLM, and as much as he is their star player, you could argue the player that they live and breathe by, Denzer is not a player that just sits back and does nothing, right? So you for sure have to respect him and his strengths, But yeah, I mean, looking at these two compositions, what you said definitely stands true. The camera will probably barely be on the bottom side, and mainly focus towards the top side. And I think one thing to add, however, is last game Kano did execute some early game ganks in the bottom lane, and I think this is something that, you know, as I mentioned in the last game, something that you can do against BLM to punish their playstyle, as there's already a fight.
A good early lead here from Linus, probably looking for a couple of grass stacks here and a little bit of damage traded back, but with Linus having that D-shield, Doran shield in his inventory, does mean that he is gonna almost perch up on a rope for the second time, but that does mean that he's gonna be the one who sort of comes out on top of that. But you can already see Carona putting down the poke, and like you said, we might not see a lot of jungle attention towards that bot lane, but if Kaze does want to go up there, there's definitely set up for him there. Along with having a Rakan, having a Seraphine, a lot of CC towards the bot lane.
Yeah, a lot of CC indeed. As we as we said, the camera is going to be on this top lane basically the entire early game. As we see exactly what I was kind of talking about this matchup is the Kennen has so many tools. You know, even with that early game trade going in favor of the Kled, the HP differential has evened up between the two top laners here, and Kled's already been knocked off with the bike. And this is what I mean by Kennen has fantastic tools to deal with the Kled, starting with the Doran's Blade. I think both AP and AD variations beat the Kled. So I think what I assume Cautious Cat is going to do is going to start with the Doran's Blade and then build into AP later on. So yeah, I think you know, as I said, I'm very curious to see how Linus operates this matchup, because one thing you get with champion specialists is they understand how to play the bad matchups. And as you can see here, Linus already kind of has a small CS lead, and I'm sure that the case of that is just because the wave is being pushed in, and of course Skaz yet to pick that up. But yeah, that's what I have interest in this matchup.
I definitely agree, and Linus already very close to getting Skarl back on beside him in that top lane. Might look for a little cheater recall. We'll see. As another thing to highlight, Case, I was talking about his supportive playstyle. My guy is running Predator on that Maokai, which means that he is going to be an absolute gank machine once he manages to get his first base, once he manages to pick up those boots. For now, we'll be playing without a rune until he does so, but you can see him going towards that bot lane. There is a ward up for the side of Runtime. They do have the vision to spot out the tree if he does end up approaching, but it's just gonna be cleared on out. Actually, Sweeper ends up putting out, which means Case doesn't even get the ward up. He's gonna be able to pick up that bottom crab, a crab trade for both junglers, but that Predator is what I'm excited for once it gets online.
Yeah, I'm excited for it, but I have to say I'm actually not too big of a fan of the Predator. I think Makai is a jungler, you know, as much as he falls under the category of like the Poppy, the Jarvan, the Vi, whatever, he isn't a jungler that, when it comes to ganks, you can just rush head on. You do need to play it a bit patiently. Your tools aren't obvious. Your W isn't long range. Your ultimate, let's be honest, it's as slow as hell. And having something like Predator, you pop the Predator and it's like so obvious that there's a gank, as there's a 1v2 in top lane.
Okay, speaking of ganks, Linus is gonna be under one now, trying to get the Skarl back here. One more auto shoot to if Carona might flash forward, doesn't even need to, as the first blood comes through. Linus will have TP to pick up a little bit of this wave, and on the mean side, LL99 is gonna fall as well. Denzer does have the reset here, can jump forward, bomb does go down, flash is not gonna be available to follow this one up. But here comes the Predator. Boots goes picked up there. Drifted advance flash forward. There is gonna pick up a one more kill.
No!
Tyrona lives and tower ends up getting Case. This tower ends up getting Denzer. And this tower has picked up more kills than BLM did almost throughout the entire last game. So MVPs to this top lane tier 1 and an absolute disaster for the side of BLM.
You know, sometimes when I watch BLM's mistakes, it's like a broken tape recorder. It's just the same thing every time.
Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, props to Runtime for playing this really well. This flash, bringing K's maze under the turret, was immaculate, and it was really, really impressive to see Runtime play with this composure, especially against BLM, who, I mean, their aim is to, you know, just play like maniacs and take this fight to you. So Yeah, I mean, honestly, not much to say about that one, except it was pretty psychopathic and they got punished for it. As Caliber is once again assuming he is a jungler, but yeah, that play did not go the way they expected, and I think what is slightly disastrous about this is he had the Tristana who picked up a kill early on in the game. We saw on the river LL99 falling to Denza, but that's negated as there's now very high CS leaders. Kano in trouble in mid.
Kano, I think, is just gonna be dead. Yeah, there comes the Buster Shot, there comes the explosion, there comes the jump as well off of that reset. And like you said, the disastrous part is that the Kirona managed to pick up all those kills. I feel like it was a little bit of miscommunication. Caliber, I feel like, wasn't exactly ready for the flash twisted advance that came out of K's grand entrance. Didn't end up coming out, but later. Not sure if it wasn't up at the time, but I feel like definitely a little bit too aggressive on the side of BLM, which does mean that Hextech Alternator gonna be picked up here by Chiron, and with him having that in his inventory. You said you were a top laner, Sobinix, so you might know about this matchup a little bit more than B, but I feel like it
I'm
is
not a top laner.
over. You're not a top laner?
No, I'm mid laner.
Well, I feel like this matchup might be a little bit over for Linus.
The matchup's a bit rough, and I actually want to touch on something I said earlier. Is in the top side, we saw Linus kind of miss that Q, and what I really like was Cautious Cat or Ranza Corona is he saw Linus miss that Q, and he knew instantly that that was his window to punish this Kled. And there's one thing about picking the counter pick, but there's another thing about knowing how to play it. And,
No.
LL99. Wait a
This
minute.
might be
Wait a
good,
minute.
but Reno not having
Oh
level 6
no.
quite yet. Caliber is gonna have to dash out, and that's just gonna be a whole lot of cooldowns burned, but everyone ends up living. And L99 not having TP up definitely is gonna have the short end of the stick here at Denzer. It's gonna get this push in. I feel like Bachira might try to keep this wave out if he can, but Denzer might be able to pick up a plate for himself as well, should be able to if the jungler has nothing to say about it. Kano is pinging his way over, but with him having the jump on the side of Denzer, with the Tristana being very, very safe, should be completely fine coming out of that. And again, I feel like Sovanix, the story of this game is BLM trying to make the plays in runtime, letting them do the mistakes, and it just backfires.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's also like I see what BLM are going for, and it's just a little bit unfortunate. And I think this is once again touching on my biggest criticism of this BLM squad is that if they aren't living and breathing by Linus being ahead in the early game, they do look a little bit lost. And I think that play right there was a perfect example of like you get a Rakan and Tristana jumping on a Victor, that Victor should die. But in the end, it was Rakan having to flash away, screaming for his life. And it's like, I've seen BLM execute plays like that in top lane, and 99% of the time, Linus gets a kill. And you see, like, there's not much connection from the other sides of the map. And as soon as I say that, I cast a Curse Fire as, for the first time in about 5 games, I've seen Caliber in bot lane. Yeah, Caliber is in bot lane and Fire is dead. So BLM, I have to say, seem to be doing a bit of an adaptation, which I love this. This is the one thing that I've been waiting for BLM to do. And off the back end of that, they picked themselves up an Ocean Drake, and yeah, this could be the new BLM we are looking at.
Potentially, and showing us that they can do more than just sit on Linus for 24/7 an entire game, but it is a good sight to see. And Ocean Drake, like you said, picked up, I would argue, one of the best first Drakes or early Drakes in the game, because that the healing can just give you so much more sustain in a laning phase, and especially if you're some of these champions like Tristana, who potentially might not have healing, does have the D shield picked up, which that's a lot of damage. Does have the D shield picked up, which does give him a little bit of sustain. But alongside that, Ocean Drake might be a little bit nice of a buff. If Casey's gonna be making his way towards this top lane, does have the Predator up as well. It's gonna be the ultimate coming through. Flash out from Chirona. Does manage to dismount the Clyde here. Mace is gonna be stunned up, but Chirona's taking a lot of damage. Ignite goes down as well, and Linus is gonna find himself on HP. Chirona 32. on the health bar there. Wishy
Oh,
might be in
Chrissy.
trouble. Is gonna get knocked up. Does have to flash out as well on core. Is gonna be saved for another day. But again, it's just BLM trying to make their place top, and Karina just saying no as another play is gonna be made here towards the mid lane. It's gonna be the ultimate coming out Denzer.
Oh, Denzer.
K-Storm doing so
What?
much damage. A kill picked up on Kano there. Caliber might be in trouble as well. Grand Entrance might keep him safe, but the flash forward from Kano might be able to end enough to end his life. And Bashira making his way over is gonna be able to say yoink, that one is gonna be mine, and pick up the kill there. And Runtime is looking to run their times over on BLM.
Yeah, BLM on basically every lane in the map have lost out. We send 2 top using Kled ultimate, Maokai ultimate, Ignite as well, and it was close, but the cannon kind of just walked out. We're losing Flash on Seraphine. There's a jump onto Evrel that ends up in Tristana dying. Yeah, BLM all across the board losing out, and I think I have to question that play onto the Rel because, you know, Rel is not a Yumi. It's not a like Soraka or anything. You don't just one-shot it. I know a really famous there's a really famous saying from one of my close friends, Mikis or Savage, where he says like the name of the tankiest member on their team and goes, I guess we'll just quickly kill this champion. And this was the classic case of like, I think BLM was like, let's quickly one-shot the Rel, and then was like, wait, it's a Rel. And then suddenly LL99 just blows his load onto Denzer and he's just gone. So yeah, again, BLM, it's once again, I have to say, BLM, they don't seem like they understand versatility. They don't think about the plays they're making. They're so used to like Linus ahead, we win game. And you know, we're having 2 games now where Linus hasn't really been able to do Linus things, and they look a bit lost, but they could pull a play back here.
Twisted advance coming out. The stutter there was good from LL99. It's gonna get taken down nonetheless. The charge is huge here. Wishy made his way over as well. TP coming in. Here comes Slicing Maelstrom. It's gonna find 3 lions. It's gonna get this fountain here, but the damage isn't quite big enough. Encore hits 3 there. The charm is so huge. Look at the Seraphine go. Wishy doing so much damage there. Fire trying to do what he can. Blade Caller comes out. Featherstorm as well is gonna be burned, but not gonna be enough as Linus is gonna pick that one up, and Wishy coming out absolutely huge on that Seraphine.
Yeah, just as I criticize the star players of BLM, the unsung hero comes and shines. Look at the team fight here. It was initially started by Runtime LL99 dropping this early in the fight, meaning that AP magic damage burst is gone, but obviously here comes the cannon with her amazing Slicing Maelstrom landing onto 3 members, but the encore from Quishy lands onto the entire backline of Runtime, and they are sent to flee, and the fight goes in the favor of the BLM squad. And you have to say, if you're Fire there, he had a fantastic game first time round, but here you have to pop that Featherstorm, you have to use the ultimate to dodge away from that Seraphine ultimate, and essentially for BLM that wasn't the case in this team fight, and they were able to pull away with the team fight victory. So as I said, BLM, they live and breathe by their topside being ahead. This time around, it is Quishy with the gold in his hands and the game in the palm of his hands for him to take and to run away with. So we'll see if BLM can take the win with Quishy ahead.
There was so many low health bars on the side of Runtime after that team fight, and with this dragon coming up and Fire having the Kraken Slayer, I would love to take a look at gold right now just to see how much he is off of his mythic. About 400 gold at the moment, give or take, about above buying that Leandris, and it is gonna be him on the gold lead, but still just not managing to get the base in time tempo. Not favoring him too much means that it's gonna be the Zaya who's got the Kraken Slayer in his inventory. Wish him might be able to get a recall before this Drake is started, but it's just so late that I feel like he might not be able to get it off, which means that if they choose to fight this Drake, it's gonna be a mythic-less Seraphine, which might make all the difference.
Yeah, definitely. And oh, there's actually a catch onto our K's here.
Here we go. K's in no man's land. His team nowhere to be found. It's gonna be the Lover Scroll popped as well. Bashiro tried to make his way over. Linus comes on in charge. Is gonna hit the tanky member, and that is not the member you wanted to hit. As Linus, while having flash as well, is gonna be
Oh
eaten up
no.
and they're gonna be spat out
Wishy?
momentarily. As the encore is huge again. Wishy trying to do what he can for his team, but he cannot do enough. As the encore just has zero follow-up from the rest of BLM. It is going to be clean house for Runtime. It is going to be a dragon in their pocket, and it is going to be a 3,000 gold lead. And Sylvanix, this makes me wonder, what could have that encore been if he had the Mystic?
Yeah, indeed, and I think that's definitely a make or break encore for this game. It's like if you have enough damage, that is vital, but not quite enough as the mythic isn't completed. As we take a look at the replay here, the initial engage came from BLM as all members coming from top to bot to make a play. Initially, it was K's Maze that got caught by a fight. A beautiful 3-man encore followed up by Caliber's W, but it only landed onto LL99 as a beautiful Featherstorm coming out from fire. So it wasn't enough, as there's more fighting, apparently.
There is always more fighting when it comes to a BLM game. Kano is gonna be the one on the run here. Maze is gonna get the Shrelia speed boost. It's gonna jump on the tower. It's gonna be the target for Runtime. This time manages to live, but that is not like the other times, having 2 deaths already in this game. And it did end up being a Herald picked up for Kano there. Runtime is gonna have that one. And this begs the question, with mid-tier 1 being so low Sylvanix, where would you look for Runtime to put down this Herald?
Well, I think what you can do is you can kind of wait for an objective to spawn, and almost place the Rift Herald. Like, of course, there's that argument to make where this Rift Herald value isn't that high because you can kill that turret without the Rift Herald. But more importantly, let's say you drop the Rift Herald, you get that turret down, you can almost guarantee a second charge onto the tier 2 turret. And what as well this will do is it will call BLM players into action. They will seek to defend this Rift Herald charge onto the tier 2. And what you can do, if with Runtime, with the composition that you have, you can set up a sort of like a pincer of people will push collapse onto the mid lane. You know, alternatively, you could just kill Seraphine on side.
Yeah, I was gonna say, speaking of collapsing, he's dead. And here comes the rest of the members on the side of BLM.
Denzer!
Flash out, Blade Caller isn't gonna be on time. Denzer is gonna go down as well. Bashiro trying to do what he can to keep his 80 carry alive. Slicing Maelstrom is gonna hit absolutely nobody, but it doesn't even matter as the entire side of BLM is just dead. Linus stuck under tower against 3, and here comes the aforementioned Rift Herald being popped to try to secure this kill on the Kled. They're gonna like looking for the tree as well. Kaze is gonna might get taken down by LL99. Is gonna have enough damage there as on the flip side, Linus gets taken down as well. They are gonna respond with a kill back. Linus is gonna get some gold, but as far as I'm concerned, that is a complete disaster for the side of BLM. You were talking about 2 dashes for the Herald. They might be able to get 2 towers off the Herald as the Encore comes through, might be able to stop it in time, but the tower will still fall, and Runtime are just 6,000 gold ahead. Mid lane tower falls, bot lane tower falls, everything is falling, but the tower mid lane will live for now, but the question is how long, because it does not have a lot of ground to stand on.
Yeah, not a lot of ground, and it just seems, again, BLM are trying to do what they do best, and it's not working, so very, very concerning for them. And as Denzer forgets that his champion is an ADC and kind of goes Malphite range, looking for a 5-man Malphite ultimate, then going like, I'm a Tristana, so I guess I'm dead. But I think, yeah, BLM, this game, I think they've just tried to make too much happen against a team that can do too much against your champions. The Kennen, you can't just force your way into diving a Kennen. You can't just force your way into diving a Rel, which is what I've seen them do multiple times this game, and it's just turned on their heads completely. So, you know, if you're BLM, this game isn't done and dusted. You still have fantastic scaling tools. Tristana will scale into the late game, will build items to deal with this front line over Runtime. The Seraphine Quishy has been landing some monstrosity ultimates in some of these fights. And Linus, I'm a bit questionable of Heartsteel on Kled, but you know what? You do you. But nonetheless, you have a Kled, you have a Marka, you do have tools to get back into this game, but you need to slow it down. We can't just be head banging ourselves into champions like Tom Kench, like Zaya. These champions have tools to play against this hard engage, and if you miss your hard engage the way that they are, you will just die. You will just get collapsed on. Victor will put the Chaos Storm down, doing multiple, like, insane amounts of damage. On top of that will be a Slicing Maelstrom. On top of that will be a Rel Engage. So, yeah, BLM, they need to play a little bit more cautious. They need to start using their brains as opposed to their hands, because right now, I think one more critical misstep in a team fight, and the game will be out of their hands.
You know, so when you say that, but I feel like we're yet to see that from BLM. You mentioned it earlier, they're so used to Linus being ahead. Now that they can't do this, as I say, that BLM might have found the catch of a lifetime. LL99 is gonna donate them a free kill. Not entirely sure why he was over there. Baron is gonna be started up here, but on the runtime side, they're gonna try to burst this one down. Doesn't have a mid laner to back it off of, and
This is
Linus
good for
is
BLM.
gonna charge in. Kano is gonna be the target here. Gonna have to play this one front to back on the side of runtime. They're gonna try to find the Zai here.
Oh.
They're gonna find the Featherstone. Big
Oh
value.
my God.
Doesn't connect, and the CC is huge. Out of runtime, BLM are the ones in trouble. Line is trying to find the backline, but doesn't end up finding anything. Wishy seeing what he can do on that Seraphine, doing a lot of damage throughout. Denzer as well, the 2 duo damage on the side of BLM, trying to keep this game afloat, trying to keep
Victor's
their
TP.
hopes alive. TP on the backside coming out, and they're gonna have to go here. LL99 has finally found his way over, and the Victor absolutely decimates the side of BLM. Shutdown coming through, but LL99 is the one who picks up 2 kills, picks up the entire team, and should be able to pick up a mid lane tower, pick up a dragon at the back end of this. And with this being said, you just said something, they need to stop banging their heads against the wall. I feel like they almost found a crack there, and then LL99 came over with the paste and completely closed it up.
Yeah, I have to feel like if you're BLM here, I get why you think you can rush into that play, but it's also like, LL99, yes, he is strong, as we saw in that last team fight, but before that catch, he was a 0-2 Victor. You're not thinking of the 5-0 Kennen. You're not thinking of the 6 kills Aya. Quishy for the first time did not land a vital encore, and BLM were forced to pay for it because once again, they don't layer their tools on top of each other. They just press all their buttons at the same time. And in this particular team fight, it was up against the Fed members of Runtime, and it didn't quite land in the way that was crucial enough to turn the fight into their favor. And off the back end of that, Fire was able to kite away Linus. We saw a crazy burst damage coming out from the Kennen as they're going to try and quickly one-shot the Rel.
Again.
Yeah, again. And yeah, as I said, the BLM, there was no reason to rush into this play. You had the numbers advantage. There was no reason why we couldn't push for mid turret first and then pressure Runtime out of the Baron pit. That way you get shot down on the turret and put some pressure on Runtime in a numbers disadvantage onto the Baron pit. But instead they rush in and they die, but we'll see how they play this one out.
Speaking of pressure, Runtime pressuring up this Baron Encore. Hits
Encore!
all 5 members, but is it gonna be in a follow-up? They are in a pickle here. Featherstone comes
this
to
is
play
the
for as well, and there is just so much damage, and Wishy hits the ultimate of a goddamn lifetime as he gets all the members fire, making a run for the hills, and here comes the Predator Maokai zooming his way over. Does he have the movement speed? But with the Blade Caller coming through, he's gonna root 2 members, and Fire gets to live, does get to keep the Baron buff, but at what cost?
Yeah, what cost indeed. And for the first time, it was Runtime playing a bit too aggressive, pulling the trigger too quickly. They all stack up, and a 5-man encore from Quishy lands, and it was Runtime that was the recipient of the unstoppable onslaught coming out from the BLM squad. And yes, they have the consolation prize of Fire running away with the Baron buff, but yeah, Quishy is playing out of his mind this game, and it's unfortunate that he is the player that goes under the radar for the BLM squad, because looking at a game like this, he does have the potential to be a big player for this team. And it just so happens, unfortunately, he is on the Seraphim, so there is only so much you can do. But what that is a big ultimate like that. And if he keeps doing that, then he will keep BLM in this game. So Runtime now, it's on them, eyes on you to make sure that you do not make a mistake like that again. Nonetheless, this game, after that fight, has evened up in terms of who is the favorite, but Runtime still with the gold lead, still with the power in their hands. They still have the Baron buff on a key member of their squad. But we'll see, because BLM, if they take fights like that, where Runtime are pressured into a corner and pushed up with their backs against the wall, that's where the BLM composition shines the most. And that's where champions like Kennen has a lot less space to maneuver, use her tools, use her utility to get away from the key ultimates, key engaged tools as well from BLM, similar to that with the Xayah and the Victor. So there won't be another Baron for a while. There will be a dragon spawning sometime soon. I don't have a objective timer, but I'm sure it'll be up soon. But yes, BLM will want to look for fights like that, and yeah, but we see Quishy getting jumped on by Bashira. I don't think this will amount to anything.
Bashira might be dead.
It might be dead, but I think one thing to notice for BLM, there's a teleport, but again, they're forcing into a play.
Denzer is somehow gonna live out of that. It's gonna be Runtime who need to run their way out now. So I see Maelstrom is gonna come through and try to see if he can pick up any kills. But Kyrona is in absolute no man's land. No one around, no one to hear his cries for help, no one to get him out of a sticky pickle that he's found himself in. And with the dragon spawning up in 1 minute, this should give complete control over to BLM when it comes to that river. Give them that vision and give them the pick that they needed. It's going to be the Maokai ultimate coming offline. Is he trying to make his way over? No available for him. He's going to find the bear trap on the rope. He's going to find LN99. Victor does get eaten up here. Might just be enough to keep him alive. It's going to be Runtime or on the back foot. Encore comes out, but not trying to hit. Fire hits the blade collar of a lifetime. He's going to be knocked up here. He's going to be rooted up, but Fire trying to do what he can. He's going to be auto-attacked by Denzer. Denzer is going to be the one to shut him down. It's going to be LN99 fighting for his life on the backside here, and he's going to pick up the kill. And again, Sovanix, it is an even fight for both. We have never seen a shutout fight in this game. Always one side loses more members than the other just by one, and this time it is Runtime who end up having the lone survivor of the Victor.
Yeah, much happening there. We'll talk about what happened before this fight in a bit, but I have to say, Fire, 5-man route with the feathers, but does get knocked up by Kala, but that was essential because Fire wasn't able to step forward to follow up on that route, and it was K's Maze flashing forward to route the Xayah and take her down. But I think in general, yes, the fight did go even, but if you're BLM here, you were behind. You are still behind, but if you are behind and fights are going even, you are very, very happy with that outcome. And I have to say, Quishy putting the team on his back, I think this is definitely a statement game from him saying, pay more attention to me because I am not just a weak side Seraphim player. And he is posing to be a massive threat, as this dragon is essential to fight over.
It's gonna be the dragon, the focus, the target of both teams. Runtime, soul point for them if they can pick it up. Wishy hits a 2-man route there. Some initial damage, some initial poke there. It's gonna be the twisted advance coming through very, very shortly onto the rail. Kaino trying to see what he can find, but the engage is not ideal. Spicy Maelstrom's coming through.
Look at this Spicy Maelstrom.
Shot, but Maelstrom is gonna find 3, and so is the even Shroud, but it's gonna be just the BLM members absolutely getting torn up by the side of Runtime. Dragon is going to be the target up next, and it's going to be just absolutely melted by Fire. And so many key abilities. There's so many big combos coming out from both teams, and it is going to be Runtime on soul point. The bush isn't boarded, so Wishy could try something here, but LL99 is gonna find himself another day in the limelight. But Wishy, not where you wanna be, my friend, up against Arel and shut down as the laser comes from the heavens. Denzer could look for a kill here, can one-shot potentially LL99 here, but doesn't want to take the risk, doesn't want to go in too deep, and it is gonna be Runtime with a 6,000 gold lead, as Baron is gonna be on the cards in about 10 seconds here.
Yeah, BLM, unfortunately, they stagger some fantastic team fights, but this time around, this one didn't go in their favor. This is the wrong replay. Get me the right replay! I'm joking. But yeah, That time around, I have to say, Kano jumping in. The engage initially didn't quite catch as many members as he liked, but what happened was he was stuck in the midst of it. The members of BLM, their focus was on this rel, and as we mentioned earlier, and as a good friend of mine always says, you can't quickly one-shot that rel, as the rel tanked up so much damage, and the DPS output came from the Kennen, Zaya, and the Victor. They were able to pump out so much damage. The slicing Maelstrom was so big, so big, landing onto key targets of the BLM squad, winning the team fight, and suddenly we're back at square one where Runtime are in control.
And this has been the story of this game. It's been a forth and back between these two teams, trading blows for blows, as the Baron is gonna be the target up next. Gonna be Linus jumping in up first. This is a very tanky Kled, keep in mind, Orb Steel, Titanic Hydra, and the Encore is gonna find nobody quite yet. It's gonna come out now, finds four members again, but no follow-up from the side of Runtime. So far, the fight is going towards Runtime at the moment. BLM making a run for the hills. Linus, Belt having Scarl by his side, is gonna be very slow to exit out this one. It's gonna be Wishy who's the target up next. Can they pick up the shutdown on the Seraphine? 8-3 at the moment. Wishy is gonna find himself killed back. And speaking of shutdowns, he's gonna pick up 700 Gs for himself for that Victor kill. And Runtime again pick up the fight and pick up the Baron buff.
Yeah, I think that was a little bit of a Hail Mary play, and I have to respect it from BLM, as I think Linus is dead, and this probably should be game. Was a solid, valiant effort, as BLM were kind of clawing themselves back into the game, but at the end of the day, the Victor and Zaya was able to scale up, and Cautious Cat landing fantastic ultimate. That Encore landed onto 5, but that Slice and Maelstrom killed 5, as Runtime are going to barrel down the BLM base, and Denza, doesn't quite die, but game 2 going over to Runtime as the Italian squad show up big time.
Indeed, it is the Italians who come through 2-0 for the moment. And so I was talking about the potential for a sweep earlier, and it is looking just that more and more likely. Wishy, absolutely check this man's browser history, because I want to know where the hell he got his backpack from. He tried to do what he could with it, but it just wasn't big enough to fit 4 people inside of it, and unfortunately wasn't enough with all those 4-man, 5-man encores that he ended up hitting. Just not enough follow-up, I feel like, on the side of BLM and Runtime. As a squad, if this is the Runtime that we are going to be running into, I feel like they are going to have a good time for themselves, looking very strong on the Rift.
Very strong indeed, and I think, if you're Runtime here, you gotta be feeling so good. Your players are playing out of their mind, and your team play is solid. You have a few hiccups, but it's just not enough, and they are playing some immaculate League of Legends. Runtime, a squad last split, they were underwhelming at best. This time around, they're making a big statement, saying, this is the power ranking number 4 in the SLE. BLM. That means top 4 in the SLE. Runtime, they were last place, team last split, and they are bringing the fight to a top 4 squad. So, big props to them. And, if this was a series, of course, the series win would go over to Runtime, and I think I believe we will play a third game out, but in terms of what this means for, I guess, the setup of SLE is that, if this was a playoff game, Black Manta are out, and Runtime proceed, right? And it's a show match. It doesn't mean too much, but my point stands of, if you had told me last split that Runtime would 2-0 BLM in dominating fashion, and one of the games would include Quishy being the possible carry of BLM, I would tell you, no, that's
no.
That's made up. That's a made up take. But in this case, that's the reality. And so, I am absolutely loving the fact that Runtime are looking this good, because I absolutely love the team. I love the organization. And, I love the fact that BLM are sticking to their roots and putting the fight. And we saw that game, when they do what they do well, they can make it close, even in the depths that they were in terms of how that game was getting away from them. They can pull up the fight, but once again, I'm so happy for Runtime that they are playing the way that they are, and yeah, so it makes me happy. I love those guys. Those guys are good.
Felt like such a back and forth game as well, and like you said, definitely not the same Runtime squad we saw last split. Definitely, we do see a lot of improvement coming their way. And if you're one of the teams who are gonna go up against this squad and you're looking at these games, I would be a little bit scared with how strong they look. And like you said, Tovanix, a flat 3 games promised for us today. So this isn't gonna be a best of 2. We will have a third. We will have a short little break here because we will take a little bit to set up the next game. But after the break, we will have our last game of the day, game number 3, and we're gonna see if Runtime can pick up the 3-0 for themselves for today. So don't go anywhere, guys. We're gonna have an exciting game number 3 for you in just a moment.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the BLM versus Runtime matchup. We are into game 3 and it's currently 2-1 to Runtime as the Italians are being the... I won't go there. Anyway. Hello guys, welcome back. We are returned with this game. For those of you who have just entered the chat, Runtime are 2-0 up in this game, in this 3-game show match, and it's been absolute fire coming out of Runtime. And BLM, they're on blue side once again, so they will be able to get the priority picks. And yeah, Gator, what do you think is going to happen here?
I think Black Manta are gonna hope to keep Linus afloat for long enough to win them the game this time. But yeah, all jokes aside, I feel like Wishy played really well that last game. Played extremely good, got a lot of big encores. So for me, I would love to see Black Manta maybe put a little bit more focus onto Wishy. He is gonna be on that Zaya this time around, so no more of the Seraphine, gonna be on a bit more of a carry champion. And potentially a little bit more of a showing from him. And if they can play around that, I feel like they might have a better time. And we might be able to see a different Black Manta today. Or we're gonna see the Kled again, and Linus is just gonna try to do what he can on the top side, and then they're just gonna be running into a wall for half an hour, so who knows?
Yeah, we'll have to see. And I think, initially we're looking at the draft. We've entered halfway through, and something to pick out is, first two games we saw Quisty on the Seraphine. This time around, he's got a champion with a bit more carry potential. And as I kind of said towards the end of the last game, give more attention to Quishy. Let him be the carry of the BLM squad because he does have the potential to do it. This time around, we see Linus has operated to the weak side on. He won't be the focus this time around, as Quishy on the Xayah and utility around him. Now, what I really like as well from the Runtime squad is the adaptation against the Xayah Fire. You've played 2 games of Xayah and operated it perfectly. This time from the Ezreal, a bit more range, a bit more reliance on skill shot. And to pair up with that is the Corki into the Orianna. Corki, a nice late game scaling champion. And I don't know too much about LL99, but off the back of these 3 games, I've seen a Syndra, Victor, and the Corki. Meaning the takeaway here is that this is a mid laner who lanes effectively, who gets to that mid to late game team fight and does the massive amounts of damage that you want from a star mid laner. And I can imagine that going into the SLE split, this is a mid laner that could potentially be someone to keep your eyes on. So I really like what I'm seeing so far from all across the board in this draft. But Dace, who would you give the draft victory to?
Ooh, I think it's a tough call because we have a lot of champions here that we are yet to see today. We have a Trundle and Orianna, Blitzcrank, Corki, Ezreal, Janna, Sejuani, an entirely new pool coming out from both teams, and with a Blitzcrank in the game, anything can happen, especially with this many squishy targets. If you can hook that Corki, maybe hook that Ezreal, maybe hook that Janna later on into the game, it can make all the difference in the world. But with having so much peel on the side of Runtime, so much range when it comes to that Corki Ezreal, and I feel like BLM have good ways of reaching that. I would have to give it to Black Manta here. I feel like having that Xayah on your back alongside the Blitzcrank Horn, great engage into a pokey comp like this, is a really good showing from Black Manta. But this is what I wanted. I wanted Linus to step out of the spotlight for one game, maybe shine it on Wishy towards that bot lane, and with him having the Ornn this time around, this is exactly what we are getting. We are getting Wishy on the strong side, him into the game a lot earlier than we have throughout these other 2 games. And if this is what we're gonna have, this is a Black Manta I am very excited to see what they can pull.
Very excited indeed, and I think you touch on the sort of poke against the engage. It is difficult if you are a poke comp when the enemy team has the likes of the Ornn and the Blitzcrank to look for plays onto your high range champions. But I think one thing to notice is Quishy will have a tough game here because Xayah traditionally is a strong B1, but right now currently there's a lot of champions like the Jace, and in this case the Corki Ezreal, which are fantastic utilizers of poke and long range abilities. Xayah is a champion that does struggle against poke, more specifically because I think you kind of want to use your ultimate to avoid high damage spells in the middle of a team fight. But if those high damage spells are happening at a consistent rate and at a rate where it's like not really in the middle of a big team fight, so you don't really want to explode that ultimate, when you're just standing in lane, that's where the Xayah struggles the most. So Quishy, yes, spotlight, I really like your point there. The spotlight now is away from Linus and onto Quishy, and more importantly, this is if I'm the Xayah here, I am genuinely quite concerned because this does not look easy. This is not a straightforward game to operate as the Xayah, but if you can, it will be a statement, and more importantly, a statement for everyone watching BLM, because there is this preconceived notion about BLM that they're basically Linus Manta. And this is an opportunity now for BLM to show that they aren't just the Linus show, that they have members on their squad that can step up to the plate and perform in the way that Linus does when he is ahead. This is their chance to do it, and of course it is a show match, so you can your takeaways will have to come with a pinch of salt, but nonetheless, BLM and Quishy does have the chance to show up big time here. So Runtime leading the series 2-0. But this game, it's all about pride. It's all about showing up. And I know I know a little bit about taking the last game of a series. There's a saying in Good Chi of never end on a loss. And if you're a BLM here, this series is lost technically, but this is the game that for sure you want to win.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like coming out, even if it is a show match, coming out 3-0-3 on a day is never gonna feel good. It's never gonna feel satisfying, especially into a team like Runtime, who you already said didn't have a great showing last time around that we had them on cast when we had them on stream. So it is good to see that they have managed to turn things around. And for the side of BLM, like you said, it is a show match, so you're not playing for realistically anything at the moment except for bragging rights. But it's always, I feel like, about mentality. And in a situation like this, when you're down by 2, you have so many new champions as well. You've essentially thrown out the playbook and said, let's pick Blitzcrank and hope. And you already touched on it. Xayah is very good at the moment as an AD carry, yes, but the reason she's good is her survivability into these engaged champions, into these dive champions, things like the Rel, things like, for example, an Ornn, which she has on her team this time, into things like Ezreal, into things like Corki, these long ranges. Xayah isn't known for her long range. She's not known as the Caitlyn, having that high range behind her. She has quite low range, and her key is surviving the dive comps. When you're up against Polk like this, it's so hard to navigate around. It's gonna be very difficult for Wishy to, like you already said, survive these fights. And if they can find the engage, if they can find the magic hooks on the side of BLM, they might be fine. But it's gonna be a difficult game for sure. And if Runtime take away this game, if Runtime take away the third win, I feel like there's gonna be some hot takes. And if they do take the third win, I feel like I'm very excited for what's gonna happen in the Discord afterwards. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I'm very excited indeed, and a bit more context added to that, especially since BLM have, I think Linus put out a video stating that his squad is the 4th best team in the SLE as it stands. So coming into the show match, going 0-2 against Runtime, not the best look, and then definitely a lot of question marks now put onto the BLM squad, but they will have this last game coming in here to show what they've got, and I think they will have a really nice composition to do that, because I'm kind of looking at the Runtime squad, and yes, the Xayah will have difficulty. It's a good amount of damage if we get to the late game coming out from Ezreal Corki, but if I'm looking at, if they want to start a fight, because, against BLM, it's nice to punish, it's nice to sort of, they tower dive with no minion wave and overextend. You want to make sure that you punish that right, and outside of the package, the Sejuani, Janna is a fantastic tool. Outside of those, though, there isn't too much from Runtime similar to what they had last game, like the Rel, who can really, punish those overextensions. Like, let's say the Ornn goes too far forward, you're kind of relying on Ezreal hitting every single Q and being at a point in the game where you can shred down the Ornn, similar to the Corki, and that won't be anytime soon. Like, these two champions do take time to stack up their damage and get their items in, and like Corki is one of those champions where it's not one item power spike, it's sort of 2 items plus mirror mana being stacked. That's where the spike is. And so if you're Runtime, like the last 2 games, they had very well balanced compositions. This time around, it's very heavy scaling. And obviously Gwen, fantastic pick into the Ornn, so I can imagine that will be the focus of attention for Runtime. But yeah, very different composition that they're running. BLM doing something similar. The only difference, of course, is that attention on bot lane as opposed to top lane. So I am mucho excitamente.
Mucho excitement is what I am for this top lane invade, as Kyrona is looking.
Yeah,
Oh my god! Defeat! defeat the dancing shoes that Chironos found in his wardrobe somewhere, as the Flash is gonna be burned from Caliber. Does have the Hex Flash to back him up, so I'm sure he doesn't mind too much, but it's gonna mean that there will be some vision traded here for the side of Runtime. They are gonna be looking for these people in this bot lane, maybe some outliers, maybe someone who was a straggler alongside here, or they could just look for the Blitzcrank to show up himself. Remember, Caliber burned his flash earlier towards the top side, and this
Yeah,
could
this
spell
could be bad.
complete disaster. Walking into the nest of Runtime,
Oh,
walking
Caliber.
into the trap. Caliber, be wary of that bush, because you never know what's inside. And he doesn't even need to check, as he's gonna be making his way out, but it's gonna be Runtime who have officially split the map in our hands. Caliber hunting for any vision he can find, any information he can find, and it begs the question: if you are Elbert in the situation, do you go to your top side, or do you just go to the? Do you go to your bot side, or do you go to the enemy top side and take up maybe a little bit away?
Yeah, I think yeah. If you're Elrat here, I think Elrat's playing. Wait, what? Surprise! Anyway, yeah,
Oh,
Elrat.
we have a surprise substitution.
Yeah, I guess there's a new player on the play screen.
Sneaky, sneaky.
Yeah,
He's got the in real life Twitch passive.
oh, wild Elrat has appeared. Yeah. I forgot what I was gonna say, but no, I think yeah, splitting the map here is a bit rough if you're the Trundle, because it means you're splitting the map for
Ooh.
an Ornn, but I think Kano is sniffing out Elrat doing some fishy activity in his jungle and will potentially be looking to fight him. So we'll see if Kano will have the intuition to queue over this wall, but he doesn't, so I think Elrat will get away with this.
Elrat level 3, there is prio for the Gwen towards the top lane, but having that level 3 Trundle definitely means you have the advantage here. Gwen can proc the Sejuani passive quite quickly, as well with the E attacks people. It's going to be Elrat who finds the pillar here towards Kano, but he's just going to go ahead and walk on away, and this time the Rat is simply going to leave the Sejuani alone, and for the moment it does look like Elrat came out on top, having 5 CS over the enemy jungler. Hook potentially coming out of Caliber here. Oh, he's not even gonna fish for it. Never mind. What a boring support. I would have definitely gone for that, but nonetheless, it is the Trundle that came out with the red buff of
Yeah,
kind of there.
this is really big, and I have to say, fantastic adaptation from Elrat, but bit of criticism towards Kano because Caliber.
Oh, Hook is still up. Oh, the minions.
Oh
Minions.
no!
Minions. Oh my god.
Wait a
Not
minute.
enough. Wait,
What?
what's going on? First blood is gonna go over towards Fire, which is gonna be in trouble as well. Double kill for Fire here, and Miniones Riot, please give us a chrono break for live servers, because that should be illegal. What just happened to Calib? I hope to God we already played that.
Yeah. You know how I was saying, like, yes, let's put some attention towards bot lane. Yeah, nah, I take that back.
Oh no!
let's go back to playing for Linus.
Oh, no.
Yeah, a bit rough as yeah, I have to say, Pepper, you are the MVP of this play. That zoom in was godlike. Yeah, so not much to say, I guess. Caliber. Oh, all right.
Another play towards bot side. Fire is gonna get taken down as well, assumingly given to Elrat. Yep, tried to give that kill over to Wishy, I do believe, which is why they were holding back a little bit there, but it's gonna be the Trundle, the troll in the jungle, who picks up 2 kills here towards the start of this game, and that is an early lead for the jungler of the LM.
Never mind what I said. Do play for bot lane. Let's go. As Elrat, I have to say, you know, I was talking about before that all happened, what Elrat had done, and in the early game he was able to take the entire topside camps, including Kano's red side. And what we saw from Kano was he took the red raptors, left the Krugs, and entered into that topside, finding all those camps being disappeared. So I think Elrat right now is at a huge tempo advantage, and what he did was off the back end of a bit of a mishap from his bot lane, was able to head down there and revert some of that, some of those errors, and get himself 2 kills, get his team 2 kills, and vitally sort of equalize the gold lead back into the BLM favor. So, and I have to say, Elrat, he is off role right now. He is a support player, so I think that definitely speaks volumes about the value of being an experienced player. He is one of the SLE staples. He did hit Master Tier last split, and you know, definitely a key member of this BLM squad, and he's already showing why he was so important to Black Manta.
Definitely coming up huge so far. Such a versatile player. Like you said, jack of all trades. As we have a gank here towards the mid lane, Dancer is gonna have to burn his flash for his sins there, and Kane already trying to see what he can do. And Caliber could look for a wrap around here, could look for Bashira. Bashira does have flash still up, but doesn't want to run into an Ezreal entirely. Minions will get out the way this time. Not going to be absolutely blocked by them. And speaking of the Sejuani, has made his way towards the top side. And Kyrona is the single member on the side of Runtime who can proc that Sejuani passive, which is a little bit unfortunate for Kaino. Means that he might have to play towards top side a lot more than he would personally want to when it comes to a Gwen Ornn matchup. But it's going to be Linus here who wants to aggressively defend his vision. He's just going to be dashing on out. And with that being said, Dragon start up here on the side of BLM should be an early Mountain Drake. With the jungler they have managed to pick up the early lead.
Yeah, early lead for BLM, and you know, as we touched on.
Wait a minute.
On myself.
Hold on now. 2v1 in the top lane. Kano is gonna fall. Linus finds one. Cannot beat the Gwen in a 1v1. Wants to get out there fast as possible. But with that freeze holding for Kyrona, it's gonna be Linus who picks up the solo bolo in the top lane.
Yeah, Kano, rough early game for him, as Elrat really giving him the chess master player, maneuvering him around the map to get himself a lead. And Kano too far behind, level 4 against Linus, and Linus in the 1 versus 2. I was gonna say, ain't no way the game that Linus is left on his own on weak side Ornn is the game that he gives himself a lead, but does seem to be the case. So Linus on the Ornn, picking up the 1 versus 2 play, and the Gwen having the CS lead. Now not really relevant with the gold going over to Linus with that kill. So BLM in much better control over this game, and I think one thing to say is that this... I was always deeming this topside aggression quite cheesy, in my opinion. And this is where BLM are playing a bit more standard. They're playing a bit better fundamentally, and we can see it's benefiting them a lot. And it's more like you cheese when you have weaker players. You cheese when, pound for pound, your players just don't match up to the opponents. And we see here, when they play standard, they are a solid squad. So I love what I'm seeing from BLM, but there is a Herald fight here.
Herald fight. Elrat is gonna get the flash forward, and this is not a fight you wanna take if you are Runtime. 4 versus 1 against a man and a boar, and the boar ends up falling, and it is some meat on the table for tonight on the side of BLM. He's gonna manage to pick up the Sejuani, gonna manage to pick up the mid laner as well, and a Herald at the back end of that end. This begs the question, Sovanex, where would you see BLM placing this Herald?
I think if you're BLM, you definitely want to put some gold into your Orianna here, because, I mean, essentially, you do have a composition where you do want to activate the Xayah, but she will slowly scale into the rest of the game. And bear in mind that if you do drop the Herald, you are dropping Herald for gold for the jungler and whatever later you are dropping that Herald for. Putting some gold into the Orianna will accelerate her ahead of the Corki, which is exactly what you want to do in terms of neutralizing that late game scaling of the Corki. And what Orianna can do off the back end of having a lead is you can hit your 2-item spike with boots. You can ensure priority pretty much at all points during the lane phase with Corki being behind. Then you can maneuver around the map to make plays, as we saw just there. Orianna works perfectly well with an Ornn, with a Blitzcrank. Fantastic setup for the champion. And despite Orianna not being traditionally the heavy carry mage, I think if you are ahead in the early to mid game, you can set the standard for the game where suddenly your late game carries have so much space and time to build towards their power spike items. And if you're a champion like Orianna, you have tools like the Shockwave, and if you are fed, a big Shockwave will win you the game. So yeah, I would really like to see the Herald placed into the mid lane, and I like to see what BLM have done this game. And what I'm slightly disappointed with is Runtime's carelessness. I feel like they've approached objectives without the same setup that they had done in the previous games, as we see another play here.
Oh, Orenhorn is gonna come through, is gonna stall out the damage dealers on the side of Runtime. The
Oh,
shockwave that you
Shockwave.
were talking about is gonna come through, gonna be big dancer, is gonna pick up that kill. Kano gets knocked up, locked up, and is gonna get taken down. And I feel like this is where you put down the Herald straight into that mid lane, straight into pocket of Dancer to pick up some of that gold like you were talking about. And BLM just finding these kills, finding the members of Runtime getting caught out, and this might not just be plates, they might get an entire tower for their troubles here, might even get an extra dash off if they aren't careful on the side of Runtime. We'll see if Shelly ends up being aggressive enough. He's charging, he's gonna get it off, and it's gonna be a double dash for the side of BLM squad.
Yeah, double charge. Not looking good for Runtime here, and as much as this Corki Ezreal does scale well into the late game, you have to say that is what they do. They scale into the late game, and it seems like they're forcing fights without the power spikes on your heavy damage dealers. And this is what I meant about the team composition. There's a bit of contradiction between the Sejuani, Corki, and Ezreal. Of you have these two champions that they essentially want to avoid any sort of fights until they have the tools that they can fight, whether that's a package, whether that's an item spike. But we've seen Kano look for plays, and that's just ended it in their demise. That the first one was the Herald, where it was the Corki and the Sejuani to fall off the back end of a big Shockwave, and there's a hook into Shockwave again. And yeah, like, this is what I mean. If you're Runtime, just go to the lane and farm. You're gonna lose out on objectives. 2 dragons? Yes, it might look bad, but with the scaling on your side, it's not doom and gloom, and they just need to stop giving away freebie fights and freebie kills over to BLM, as Alrat once again looking for Kano.
Oh my god, Caliber is going off the charts right now, hitting all these hooks. Kano is gonna get jumped up here by the Trundle. Is gonna dash out. Denzer had to burn flash at the back end. LN99 forcing that one out. Slow comes through. Ornhor it to for back up here. Is gonna have to burn the ultimate. The Trump does come through. Elrat is going to be picking that one up. Baron not gonna be on the cards for the next 6 minutes, so not on the table yet, but Elrat is still hunting, looking for more. LL99, like you said, not the items in his pocket to be able to do damage in these fights. And we were talking about the Orianna. I feel like there's a lot of people who underestimate the Orianna damage. Like you said, if you can get her ahead, if you can get her into that state where she's the one controlling the game, she can output, despite being known as the Shockwave, the CC control mage, output a lot of damage in these team fights. So definitely keep your eyes out on him. Kyrona might look for a 1v1 kill here. Linus is walking up a little bit too far, but Needlework, Needlework not available. It means that Kyrona, not much kill left there with the amount of HP that Linus has in his pocket. As I say that, Linus is going to be forced to dash away. Phase Rush is going to be procced as well. And interestingly enough, it is an Ornn with Phase Rush here does help him kite out the top lane matchup a little bit more, which is an interesting choice coming out from Linus as well. And with the game state at the moment, who would you favor for this dragon that's going to be coming up in 3 minutes? Obviously, a lot can change, but so far I feel like it has been a BLM show all the way.
Yeah, this is definitely the BLM show, and I have to say, in terms of who's going to approach the objective and who's in control, Runtime are in a bit of a sticky situation here, where your carries won't hit their spikes for a very long time. Is BLM looking for a play top lane?
Caliber, this is your time to shine. He's been hitting hooks all day long. Ghost is gonna make it difficult, but Kyrona with their feet. Once again, dancing shoes are on. It is disco night for him, as Kano is looking for a pick here. Anything can fight. Bashira is in trouble on the back end of that. Has to burn ultimate just to survive from Trundle, which he dies to anyway. And the shockwave is big as well. And the knockup hits 2, and they're all just dead. Ezreal ultimate at the back end is gonna get absolutely nobody. Kyrona is in trouble up next. Elrad is searching, he's hunting. Line is tanking the tower till next week. as with all the armor and HP he's got in the back pocket as the Ornn. And with that being said, so many more kills picked up for BLM. I feel like Sovenix, this game is slowly but surely running out of hands of runtime.
Yeah, I have to say this game looks done and dusted, to be honest. Like, I feel like Kano is not playing to what his lanes want to do. Like, you have a Corki who has a turret down. That, losing your turret this early on in the game probably is bad, but it actually gives space for Corki to just right-click minions until the end of the game, right? Until the power spikes in here, we see Kano going in for a forced fight, and all that does is it sets up a shockwave onto 2. And I've seen this on repeat 3 times in a row, where it's Kano and LL99 looking for a play on a Corki Sejuani that are just so weak right now. They just get hit with a shockwave and they're just dead, like on the spot. And it's happened so many times to the point where this game just looks completely out of their hands. And, if you're Runtime here, you almost need to just laugh this one off. Because, you won the first 2 games, laugh this one off. But if you're BLM, you have to be super, super happy with the way this game turned out. For the first time in the series, you're not putting the attention onto your top lane too much, but you're putting it more into mid and bot lane. And despite Quishy not really being the benefactor of that, we've seen Elrat and more specifically Denza be huge off of this. So
Caller. I had high hopes for that. I really thought that was gonna catch out them both, but it's gonna be BLM who are on the back foot here. Caliber, they will have the hook up very, very soon, so good look for it. But it was a good buffer from Fire there to not get caught out by that. Unfortunately, Trendle Pillar came right afterwards, which meant that he got caught out nonetheless, but it was a good try from him to keep himself alive. Pillar comes through and flash for flash between the supports is gonna get burned. Linus made his way down here as well to try to secure this bot lane tower for his team. Dragon up as well, which is the main objective that's in the back of their minds right now, in the back pocket of BLM. Might be soul point for them if they can pick this up. A mountain, an Infernal Soul at the back end of things could be huge, and Kaino is going to be the one in trouble. Pillar comes out but cannot be slowed as the Sejuani passive comes in clutch there. Bashir is going to be rooted up here. No hook for Caliber, but ended up burning it earlier on. It's going to mean that the fire is going to be safe for now. The knockup hits 2. Bashira is going to immediately cancel the ultimate, which means no healing for him, and he is going to go down. Unstoppable there for Linus is going to bring no value there, but Kano ends up interrupting that. The shockwave is big. It's going to hit 2, and that's going to be Denzer making the difference again, which has been the story of this game time and time again. Fire might be able to take down Linus here. Linus getting quite low, no armor at the back end of him. Rushing that MR item means that Fire does hurt quite a bit, even when it comes to this Ornn. And with that being said, Dragon picked up for BLM. Infernal Soul on the cards in about 5 minutes. Baron up in the cards in about 1 minute, and BLM are definitely giving Runtime a run for their money.
yeah, time to run, BLM says, as we had the package there on LL99 and it just wasn't used. And it's kind of got me wondering, is this a composition that Runtime actually understand how to execute, understand how to play? Because the way I see it, right, is you want to put this Corki on a bot lane. You want to put this Ezreal mid. Ezreal can safely farm, Corki can safely farm. You pick up the package, and that was a potentially decent angle for Runtime to utilize that package to look for a pick, not necessarily get the objective, but at least get something out of the game. And in the end, package wasn't used, and they stalled for so long for any sort of fight that Orianna was able to TP and turn the fight. As Caliber looking onto mid again, doesn't quite land it, but yeah, Runtime. This game wasn't the one. As BLM and more specifically the mid jungle of BLM here, playing immaculately well, and yeah, Runtime backs against the wall, and it is looking completely done and dusted. As Denza, for sure, my MVP of this game.
Yeah, I definitely agree to some extent. I feel like we do have to wait a little bit until the game ends before I'm gonna cast my MVP vote, but definitely a good candidate there. And like you said, Runtime have ran themselves into a corner. They've painted themselves into a place where it is very difficult for them to escape. Now, looking at a couple of the bright sides potentially, we are seeing some of these mythics finished up. Manamune has evolved in the inventory of LL99. Got that Maramuna up in his inventory, which means he does have that version. Does manage to get those tier stacks. A little bit more damage coming out. Wristmaker in Chirona's inventory is gonna help cut down against Linus. And with that being said, yes, it is very, very thin when it comes to silver linings, but silver linings nonetheless. But still a very, very difficult game for runtime, and they are running out of time.
Wow, that was smooth. Yeah, running out of time indeed, and it feels weird to say that considering they're the ones with the scaling composition. But as we see now, I don't know if they're listening to the stream because this is the kind of setup that I think suits their team comp the best, where you just have a Corki farming in side lane and Ezreal safely farming in mid. One thing to note is, like, for the runtime squad, the way Cautious Cat has played this game is ideally how you would have wanted the rest of the members to play this game, where you're just totally farming. But Bashira,
Oh my god, Caliber is on one tonight as the hook, another hook lands, and I don't know about you, Sovanix, but it is rare for me to see people disappear that quickly. But Bashira just completely blew up.
yeah, completely blew up indeed. And I think, speaking of Bashir, his opposite number, Caliber, has had a fantastic game this time around, and he's been looking for plays this time on a champion where he can doesn't necessarily need to look for picks by putting himself in the firing line on a champion where if he gets the pick, he will be at a safe distance and his team will be able to follow him up, and it seems to be paying massive dividends as he's having a fantastic game. 3 kills and 8 assists. That is a large kill participation for him as the Shockwave will whiff, but yeah, nonetheless, I think BLM much better game, and this is the top 4 SLE team that we expected coming into this show match, and they are reminding the SLE crew and everyone watching that yes, the first 2 games were a bit of a slip up, but we are still the Black Manta of the SLE, and we cannot be forgotten. So, really good stuff from them. As this dragon will be spawning, and this is essential for BLM to secure, as this means in the Infernal Soul. Infernal Soul on this Fed Oriana will be the nail in the coffin. So, big approach and really essential approach for Runtime to make sure that they get this one right.
This is make or break for Runtime squad. This is gonna be the fight for them to either slowly come back into this game, buy themselves that 5 minutes of extra time, or just completely get decimated here. Like you said, this Fed of an Oriana, especially on an Ezreal, and that's gonna be the fire, the target here. Ornhorn does come down as well. No arcane shift available no longer. Flash does have to come out, and he's gonna have to burn it. Earn Ultimate does get burned, which is a big teamfight tool package in the inventory of LL99 as well. They're gonna find the engage, they're gonna find the giant, they're gonna find the one shot, and TP isn't gonna be enough as LR is on a complete mission. And gonna get turned around here. Needlework doing a lot of damage. 1 HP, but LL99 gets hooked completely, and Linus is just trying to find what he can do. And Sovanix, we were talking about this being the make or break fight for them, and Caliber again, the Blitzcrank again coming through, and with the Infernal Soul secured, Sovanix, this is, I hate to call it early, I always do, but 19-2, 11,000 gold. I feel like this game is it's long gone.
Yeah, this game's long gone, and that was a massive shockwave coming out from Denza, and he's really putting in a shift this game. But yeah, if you're Runtime there, it feels like just micro mechanical errors and disconnect between the team, because it's like, you know, Corki Ultimate, your Corki package, last time I checked, isn't a Tryndamere Ultimate. You don't really use it right before you die. You kind of want to use it to do big damage. And in that case, it just wasn't the one. And, you know, if you're on time, you're okay. Like, it's fine. We're having a rough 3rd game, but the grand scheme of things, we did well. But, yeah, this one's rough. And I think for BLM, this is a fantastic game to showcase. You know, if they do get into their groove and if they do play the game that they play best, this is the damage that they can do to their opponents. Where it seems like no matter what Runtime are doing, they are, you know, backs against the walls. BLM are balls to the wall, and then bringing the game to runtime. And yeah, BLM much better game. And what I like to see is Linus is a mechanical player. He has fantastic microplay, and putting him on something like an on at face value might seem contradictory to complement the skills of Linus, but if you think about it, being able to dictate the setup and the plays that your team makes might benefit the BLM squad better than when he is on a carry champion. So what he's doing essentially here,
That's a dead Corky.
yeah, what essentially he's doing is he's facilitating players like Denza to stand out. Okay.
Oh, Caliber goes again, lands another hook. Kano might end up living this one by some stroke of luck. I don't know how the hell he doesn't get one shot despite all that damage coming through, but nonetheless, another hook landed by Caliber. Bot lane inhib tower is gonna be the target here. Linus is not gonna have ultimate up for this last push that they're gonna do. Caliber finally missed a hook. I've been waiting for that for the entire game, but this man is a god. He has proved himself that he's human. He's proved himself that he isn't running the scripts. And he's proved himself that he can miss. So, how do the side of BLM Sovonix end the game? I think that's the only question that's on their minds right now.
I think the way BLM end the game is just by proceeding as normal, I would say. If you're a runtime, I would almost... Like, if you're a runtime here, this is what I would do. I would flip a fight so that the game ends.
Yeah, I feel like we were talking about their scaling, but I feel like at this point when you're down by this much gold, it's not gonna get any better for you anytime soon. Like you might as well just try. I feel like you might as well just try something. See if you can make it work. Hope to God that Caliber misses, as the Orderhorn is gonna come out here. Hallowed Mist is gonna block that one. Carvana is gonna get engaged on. Randolph Pillar gonna block some of the movement here, but Caliber not in range to hook absolutely anybody there, as Kano is just gonna end up dashing back on away, and Linus is just trying to craft, but it's all a bait as the craft is what gets
This looks good for a runtime.
Might be able to turn this one around. Linus is getting very low here.
Okay.
Corky is gonna pick up the shutdown. Red Radiant Virtue is gonna keep him alive. Jan ultimate bringing everybody back up to full HP. Elrad is gonna have the ultimate exhaust. Caliber and Denzer in the background. Shockwave is gonna be massive there, as it's gonna be 3 kills picked up. And Sovonix, it looked like there was a shining light at the end of the tunnel, a crack and the window for Runtime to make their escape, and they just get ran the hell back onto their base by the Orianna in the mid lane. And Fire is gonna be in trouble as well. Wishy is not done, as Fire is gonna try to go for the snipe, but it's gonna go a little bit wide, and it's gonna be sent on over to another planet by the looks of it. So I'll be seeing that pass by my window anytime now. Oh, okay, sorry, I had to dodge that real quick, it showed up. But yeah, that's gonna be only the Nexus Tower surviving on the side of Runtime, and I know we've said this earlier, Sovonix, but I feel like it's just a matter of time. No objectives up, Baron up in 1 minute, Elder up in 1 minute, and it did look good. Corky picked up a shutdown, but that shutdown isn't gonna be enough to get them over the absolute mountain that they have to climb.
Yeah, big mountain to climb for a runtime. Oh, did that rhyme? Whoa, that does. Anyway,
I think I'm fine.
Yeah.
Getting bigger.
That was actually a decent fight from the Runtime squad, and I think it does show that they are still good players. But yeah, BLM executing this game very, very effectively and very efficiently. And I think if we're looking towards members like Caliber, as we see here, there was a phase there where it was like everywhere the camera panned, I just saw Caliber land a hook. So yeah, this guy is unhinged in this game 3 of this series. So oh, by the way, just for people who are confused, the scoreline is 2-0 to Runtime. So yes, as I said, another hook landing from Caliber.
There it is. Kano is gonna find his way out, and I feel like Caliber has continuously hooked the Sejuani for this past couple of minutes, and Kano keeps finding his way out, but he is 0-8, so yes, he's a Sejuani, but still quite squishy against the 6-0 Orianna and the 4-1 Zaya.
Yeah.
And we didn't even talk about this, but like this is also the part where yes, you're up in gold, but oh, there goes
Oh,
another one. This time Kano isn't gonna be able to walk out of that. It's gonna. Oh my god, that shit!
what
Jesus
the?
Christ, Denzer. Shockwave absolutely deleted Bashirad. I was gonna bring up the fact that they have Orin items on the side of BLM on top of all that damage that they already have. But Caliber again, but Israel buffer is just too damn good. He's gonna be able to avoid that one. LL99 trying to make a flash play forward, but flashing forward as a Corki, not what you wanna do against a squad that is 27 kills in the making. Fire is gonna get taken down as well. Well, going a little bit wide there on Linus, but it shouldn't matter too much. Elder Buck comes through as well, and this to me, Sobonix wasn't. Isn't a word that has been invented yet for what this was. Another hook landing from Caliber there, and domination doesn't even begin to. Oh my god, that
Oh my
shockwave!
lord.
That someone clip the last 5 seconds of that. Show them the shockwave because that pretty much sums up the entire game.
Yeah, BLM completely discombobulate the runtime squad, and it was just a case of one team understanding their team comp significantly better than the other team. And Black Manta, their star players were able to shine through in this last game. And Denza, my MVP for that game, Caliber a close second, as every hook seemed to be landing. It looked like a professional baseball game as runtime were catching hooks left, right, and center. But yeah. Black Manta show up big time, and more importantly, Elrat was insane on the Trundle. In the early game, like the last two games, it looks like Kano was in full control of the early game. This time around, it looked like Kano was autofill, and Elrat was some like master tier jungle main playing the role for 50 years. Chess Grandmaster Trundle, SLE Trundle Mastermind. But realistically, Elrat's just some support player, right? And that just didn't look like it was the case this game. So big props to all of the Black Manta squad because off the back end of the last two games, coming into this game, it was this was more of a pride situation. You don't want to go 0-3 in a show match. That's just frankly embarrassing. So really nice from Black Manta to bounce back into this game, and I really like the adaptation, putting Linus on more of a facilitator position as opposed to the main carry. And what we saw off the back end of this was Denzo was able to step into that spotlight and shine through, as that Oriana was lethal. We saw the damage of the shockwaves. We saw how Caliber was able to set up plays all around the map, and it looks like Runtime were completely lost and completely unaware of what their composition was essentially supposed to do, as they just consistently ran in to the meat grinder that was the BLM mid jungle support into the rest of the game. So yeah, that concludes this show match. Dasa, what are your final thoughts?
I was just rewatching the last Shockwave out of Denzer time and time again, and it was a story of Denzer. I feel like that game, you already said, Caliber played very, very well in that last game as well, just hitting hooks left, right, and center. And I feel like there is consensus to give all of the members of BLM MVP. I feel like everybody played well. Linus found himself in a matchup that he's meant to be losing into a Gwen, found himself somehow an early lead, which just sort of cascaded throughout the map as well. Denzer playing very, very well. Caliber playing very well, hitting just all the hooks left, right, and center. You could not breathe for a second without getting hooked by Caliber. And with that being said, it is going to be a 2-1 to runtime, but we already said this, Sovanix. If this is the runtime we're looking at, I wouldn't take that last game as anything. I feel like their comp was just geared towards late game. They didn't play towards it, and that's that. But runtime squad looking very, very good. And my MVP for last game is gonna be Caliber.
Yeah, definitely. Runtime squad. I think both squads off the back end of this game, these games look really, really strong. They've both shown strengths, and they've both shown that if you let them play their game, they can dominate you. One thing, like I think my biggest takeaway is that they have definitely both shown their hands in terms of their weaknesses and their strengths. And I think what will be interesting moving forward is how teams look at this and how These two squads adapt from this. It's like, you know, if I'm Runtime off the back of our last game, yes, it was rough and it sucks to end on a game like that, but it's sort of just like, and this is the whole point of scrims, right? This composition doesn't work. This is not our thing. Let's go back to what was working in game 1 and game 2. If you're BLM, your takeaway from this is game 1 and 2 playing heavily for topside, these cheesy aggressive turret dives that did not work out in our favor. Let's look at what we did correctly in this last game, which was let's facilitate our heavy carry mid laner. Denza, fantastic mid laner. I think one of the top mid laners in the leagues that in the SLE that we have. Let's put him in that pedestal and let's get him to be doing the big damage, and let's get Caliber on a pick where he can look for players all across the map and cause havoc. And I think, you know, just off the back of that, you know, quick analysis, I'm already thinking these are the strengths of these individual players. Denzer is a carry player. Caliber, he's been so good at making plays roaming around the map. Let's put him on a champion where he isn't just locked into top lane. Let's put him on a champion where he can move around. And similarly to Runtime, I think, from what I've seen, you have players like, you know, Kano, who in the early game he needs to be able to facilitate plays in lanes. He needs to be able to push the lanes to do what their laners need to do in order to hit their power spikes. Being able to play with the Syndra and the Victor, the Gwen, and the Xayah is what they were doing good. And I think these are the takeaways that both these teams want to take away from the games, and also other teams will be looking into these two teams after this and taking away, you know, their strengths and weaknesses. So I was a big fan of these two games, and yeah.
I definitely agree, and like you said, a very good showing from both teams, and definitely teams to look out for when the season does advance and once we get to those all-forsaken playoffs. But like you said, that is gonna do it for today. Thank you, Sovanix, once again for joining me. It is an absolute treat to be here with you. Thank you to Peppa for being the producer, and thank you for the lovely zoom in. We had a game number 3 where Caliber got absolutely screwed over by minions. Definitely the highlight of my day. But that's gonna be it for today. And catch us next time, as I do believe it'll be hopefully another show match. We'll see if it is Black Manta this time or another team. But regardless, stay tuned and we'll catch you next time.
Peace.